Happy Saturday, folks. Happy Saturday. How you doing, Sophia?
I am doing great.
You're like Tony the Tiger. You're great. well,
Well,
first of all, let me apologize though. First of all, let me apologize because today was actually supposed to be a debate review between Tom's takes and our co-host Objective Ethics. And this is my fault because I had the email and it just totally slipped my mind because I've got a million emails coming in regarding some personal situations that I'm having. And so I've just been so focused on that it just slipped my mind. And so at the last minute, I'm like, oh, Lord, we don't even have a topic for Saturday. And I forgot we already did, but I thought we didn't. So I came up with this whole thing yesterday, did some research. So we're going to be talking about Michael Levin and his research regarding bioelectricity, um, cells, how they learn, how they're intelligent, um, Platonic forms, how it relates to things like, idealism, materialism, panpsychism, and other possible worldviews you may see it support.
of course, mysticism.
Mysticism, exactly. And I wanted to have Sophia, she wrote out a few words regarding that. We've been both looking at it and studying, researching it. And Sophia has her own model of the mind body problem called the LFM model. And I'm going to let her kind of describe that and how it relates to the work of Michael Levin. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sophia just kind of go over that stuff. We'll kind of discuss it and we'll go from there. So, Sophia, if you will, take the floor. It's all yours. Go for it.
All right, y'all. I'm going to read. So, we're going to be talking about Michael Levin's work here and what it actually shows. So, Levin's field is biological cognition, specifically bioelectricity, the electrical signals that cells, tissues, and organs use to coordinate growth and healing. His core findings, cells behave like tiny agents. So what they do is they anticipate future states, integrate information over time, store memories in bioelectric circuits, exhibit goals such as regenerating a limb to its correct shape, or communicate across distance using voltage patterns. So this is not mystical, it's documented and experimentally. But the behavior mirrors cognition. They problem solve, they make context dependent decisions, they coordinate into larger selves, organ, body, and organism. Levin calls this multi scale competency, memory stored outside of the brain. He shows that planaria store memories in their body's voltage patterns, not just their neural tissue. That alone destroys strict materialist brain centric views of consciousness. Bioelectric fields act like software. These fields tell cells where they are in the body and what to become. If you rewrite the electrical pattern, the body remodels itself accordingly. So, how does this support my LFM model, which basically says, it's pattern and frequency shapes matter. So the body has a morphogenetic field. Levin avoids mystical language, but scientifically, the organism shapes, the organism's shape exists as an electrical pattern, and cells behave in ways that try to restore the pattern when damaged. This looks very similar to a blueprint, a memory of form, a self-referencing field, a non-local pattern guiding matter. So in LFM, it's consciousness self-reflecting, you know. How this supports idealism in LFM. Strict materialism says life equals chemicals reacting, right? Consciousness equals brain neurons firing. But Levin's work shows non-neural tissue has cognition-like behavior. It shows that cells follow information patterns, not just chemistry. Information fields guide physical outcomes. Memory can exist in bioelectrical form. Development involves problem solving, not blind mechanisms. This directly undercuts materialism's strict bottom-up model and idealism and so there are sorry if I get tripping up here. Idealism compatible conclusions. Information precedes form. Intelligence exists at all levels of nature. The body is organized by a non-physical pattern. Matter responds to field-like signals. Consciousness may be a continuum, not a binary like an on or off switch. This aligns seamlessly with my model because consciousness behaves like a frequency that shapes matter. And we also see that in cymatics, where sound waves shape matter. How to blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that. What? Sorry, skip into some more important parts. Okay, so the cells act like frequency receivers. In my model, consciousness modulates frequency, frequency shapes matter. In Levin's field, which is bioelectricity, bioelectric fields encode pattern and cells follow the pattern. Bioelectric fields equals frequency pattern. Cells equal matter responding to frequency. Organisms have self-referential patterns. And in my model, consciousness is self-igniting like phosphorus and self-referential, which is pretty much the same thing. Tissue, in his work, tissues refer to a global pattern of what the body should be. So both of those systems, his and mine, maintain coherence, correct deviations, seek a harmonious final state. So in my model, it's energy equals mass times observation squared. Observation rearranges matter via frequency. And in his case, it's changing the electrical observation of a cell. Changing the electrical observation of a cell changes what it becomes, right? So that is a perfect synergy. Now let me read that again because I think I fucking stumbled that a little bit. So in my model, energy equals mass times observation squared. Observation rearranges matter via frequency. In his viewpoint or work, changing the electrical observation of a cell changes what it becomes. So that's why that's a perfect synergy. Okay, let me fast forward to a couple more points. So yeah, my model says consciousness is frequency, and Levin shows that bodies are literally controlled by frequency like bioelectric patterns. So that's kind of huge, right? We finally have a scientific framework that makes idealism testable. And these are real experiments. Going fast forwarding again, bear with me. So yeah, his work shows that many features we associate with consciousness appear in cells with no brain. So that's the thing. He is working with organisms that have no brain, like they just don't have a brain. There's no brain. So what does that tell us? It doesn't tell us it's full human consciousness, right? But there is some sort of consciousness within those organisms without a brain. It's like the building blocks of it are there, right? And this is why Levin calls it basal cognition. It's cognition at the base level of life. He also talks about multi-scale intelligence. So his work demonstrates that the capacities we associate with consciousness do not originate in the brain alone because we find them in non-neural cells. And that statement is scientifically true and philosophically explosive, y'all. Uh, so what this means for idealism: if consciousness like behavior exists before the brain without neurons and across the entire body, then consciousness cannot be reduced to the brain. This supports idealism, right? This supports my model. The idea that intelligence is embedded in the fabric of life, not an emergent property of neurons. So yeah, that's what I'm saying there. And let's go fast forward. There's a few more things I want to bring up. Bear with me. So yeah, materialists cannot say the brain is influencing the cells in these experiments. Why? Because Levin's, man, I should have turned that fan off. Because Levin's research uses organisms and tissues that literally have no brain, which we already established that, like in the case of the planaria, with their heads and brains removed, still retain behavioral memories stored in their body's bioelectric patterns. And we actually did watch a video on that one time. When memory persists after the brain is removed, materialism loses its foundation. And planaria experience are the clearest example. In case no one knows what that is about, I don't know if anybody followed that when we looked at that, but planaria experience are the clearest example because the researchers teach a worm a task. They remove the worm's head, which contains its brain. The worm regenerates a new head, and the brain still retains the old memories. This means memory was stored in the body, not in the brain. So that's what that whole thing is about. Okay. So the behaviors emerge from bioelectric fields, not neural activity. Okay, so we know that. I'm trying to get to another part here that where my mysticism comes in at. In other words, I could just say it by myself, but I want to be precise. So yeah, but one thing we have established so far is that if the brain isn't present, it cannot be caused. Logic, right? And then we can build from there. And so as a mystic, I do the same thing, right? I recognize patterns, process them, and then I integrate them. And then it helps me basically adapt to my environment and evolve with my environment. So like as consciousness evolves, so does the world of matter, right? And the way it does this is by it's definitely the correlation between matter and fields. We see the fields all the time. The field is always there. And the information and the data comes from the field, and it affects the material reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a manifestation. This is what he calls multi-scale information integration, right? And that's the same thing mystics do. Cells integrate information, tissues integrate information, organisms integrate information. And me as a mystic, I integrate higher order information the same way: pattern recognition, intuitive insight, sensing coherence from chaos, integrating signals, updating my form, mind, and body, evolving based on pattern feedback. And I'm basically saying I operate at the organism level version of what cells do at the micro level, which is exactly the saying, as above, so below. Idealism says consciousness permeates everything. Levin shows intelligence permeates biology. So my mystical intuition is me in tune with the underlying informational field. And Levin's work says there is a substrate of information guiding matter, bioelectric fields, pattern memories, morphogenetic blueprints. Those fields act like memory, intention, blueprint, goal state, self-reference, And I feel this through intuition, and his research observes it empirically. Did y'all hear me? Y'all heard that? I do this through intuition. His work does this through his research, right? Empirically. So it's the same phenomenon, different scale. This is also evolution, but not Darwin's mindless evolution. Let's make that clear. It's not mindless. There's intention. You're not evolving by random mutation. You're evolving by integrating meaning, decoding patterns, tuning into global information, adjusting your internal state, transcending old configurations, recognizing your bioelectric self model, becoming a higher expression of consciousness. This is pattern-driven evolution, not random evolution. Levin's framework aligns with this. Cells evolve towards higher organization, tissues evolve towards coherence, organisms evolve towards greater capacity, and minds evolve towards expanded awareness. And that's the Lucifer frequency model in action. Consciousness modulates frequency shapes form, and form evolves consciousness, and the cycle repeats. This links to my mystical experience to real biology mechanisms. What I experience as intuition, vision, pattern detection, synchronicity, knowing, energetic awareness can be framed scientifically as heightened sensitivity to information fields, rapid integration of multi patterns, a non-linear cognitive style, advanced metacognitive modeling, whole system awareness. And I am effectively an organism level version of a high competency cell cluster. I do consciously what cells do automatically. Again, as above, so below. And I guess that we could leave it somewhere right around here and check out this video and then open up the floor for discussion. But wait, there's more. Hold on, y'all. I just want to really drive it home, right? So Levin proves, okay, y'all hear this word, proof. That fields aren't metaphor. They're literal causal forces in biology. This is what his work proves. For years, we have said this as mystics, right? We said there's a field, there's a blueprint, patterns manifest into form, information precedes physical reality. Materialists say, well, that's woo-woo. But now science, you hear this? Science is saying the body is controlled by fields of information. Bioelectric fields determine where organs grow, what shape they take, how regeneration happens, memory stored, how cells decide what they are. And this is manifestation in biology, not metaphor, not mystical wording, literal experimental fact. So what we have here is a manifestation which equals field and form. Okay? And that's pretty much the material nation. And
perfect. So, what I want to do is yeah, we can leave it there, but what I want to do as well, because it's one from us. I mean, we're just reacting to the work of Michael Levin, right? So the proof doesn't really come from us. We're just sort of echoing what we're reading about and learning about. So what I want to do is actually let's let Michael Levin sort of explain it from the horse's mouth. And again, even that video isn't going to be the evidence. If you want the evidence, you have to go to the research papers themselves, and they are there. It's easy to find. It's on Google. Google it, bro. It's right there, and you can check it out. I think it's very interesting. And now there's, I'm going to let Michael Levin though speak for himself. I'm just pulling this up from Michael Levin Explains the Future of AI and Humanity video, and it's pretty interesting. But he goes into all of these things that Sophia just referred to. So I'll go ahead and play it for you guys.
I've been talking to you in a very long time.
I know, it's been a while. Yeah, I was thinking of you when I saw that great piece on Dennis.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it, because of course there's a lot of blowback on saying anything is purposeful.
Sure.
I just want to level set for everybody where we're at, because there seems to be this huge gulf of awareness between what's happened in the past 20 years, and particularly in your lab, because I think you're at the forefront of pushing these boundaries and redefining things you've discovered, observed, and created in your lab.
Yeah, we made.
Uh-oh. Sorry, I don't have the premium. One day when I get rich. Here we go.
Yeah, we make synthetic beings like xenobots and anthrobots. Xenobots are made of frog skin. Anthrobots are made of adult human tracheal epithelium. They have all kinds of interesting new behaviors that their origin tissue may not have had.
So when you're making an anthrobot, and you're calling it synthetic, but it is biological, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're taking these cells from a human cadaver, and then you're creating a new organism with it through, is it an AI generated design?
First of all, it doesn't have to. We capitalize on the competencies of these cells to pull themselves together into a functional form in new environments. The cells self-assemble into a creature with novel behaviors and form that we did not give it. So we use AI to try to discover, this is in collaboration with Josh Bongard's lab at UVM, we use it to discover new ways to prompt the cells to do new things. As a translator, you have these tools, including AI, that help you communicate your goals to those of the cellular collective.
The cellular collective are groups of cells in your body that act as a scalable intelligence team whose problem-solving power grows with its size. These collectives use shared goals and communication to solve problems, adapt, and accomplish tasks like building organs or regenerating tissue, showing an increasingly sophisticated collective intelligence beyond any one single cell.
The thing that drives all of these discoveries is this idea that you really can't assume what level of intelligence or cognitive capacity a system has. You have to do experiments. And also the idea that tools from behavioral and cognitive science having to do with the study of memory, the study of goal-directedness, problem solving in various spaces is much broader than we typically think of in terms of brains and activity in this three-dimensional world.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the things you're seeing in these cells is cognitive processes like sensing, perception, memory, different kinds of learning, decision-making, goal setting, and pursuing, and communication?
All of those, including my favorite, which is creative problem solving. Finding new ways to get to your goal when everything changes. The environment changes, your own parts change, everything changes, and you find new ways to get your goals met. That is a really non-controversial definition of intelligence, being able to use the tools you have in new ways to solve problems you've never seen before. That is not a weird way to define intelligence, right? I think we could all agree that that's pretty much intelligence. And we see those all the time in unconventional beings navigating weird spaces that we're not used to thinking about. This is not just, philosophical fluff or, this idea where you think there's a spirit under every rock. Where the rubber meets the road is simply this. Can you take the tools that people use to study memory, learning, goal-directedness, problem solving in behavioral cognitive sciences, and can you apply them to the kinds of things I'm talking about, cells, tissues, molecular networks? And the answer is yes. That is what we've been doing. That is how you know that this is functionally real and useful, because it lets you do something that you otherwise would never do. We do things like training molecular pathways, using optogenetics and memory rewriting to permanently change the anatomy of various creatures. That is how you know you mean this literally, is by being able to use the exact same tools.
As a behavioral and social scientist, so you're using behavioral and social sciences applied to the molecular level?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you a simple example. So a gene regulatory network or a pathway is just, it could be small, it could be 5 or 6 or more genes or proteins that all regulate each other. They just turn each other on and off. So you can imagine this kind of network with arrows, right, where each thing turns each other on and off. You could say, well, I don't see any magic there. It is deterministic. It is simple. It's transparent. I'm going to assume that this thing is dumb and it's mechanical, and I'm going to treat it the way I would any mechanical system. And the implications of that are that if you want to change its behavior, you have to rewire it. This means, in biological terms, it means gene therapy to change the ways that the different proteins interact with each other and so on. Or you could say, actually, we don't know that. And the way to discover where something lands on the cognitive spectrum is to actually do experiments and see what happens. And so one thing that we've been doing is taking the simple behavioral training assays, and you can choose the different nodes in that network, and you can say, okay, this is going to be my unconditioned stimulus, where when I trigger this one protein, this other thing, which I'm going to call the response, turns on, right? And then there's another node, if we're going to call that a neutral stimulus, because if I trigger this one, that one does not turn on. And then I'm going to do Pavlovian conditioning, right? Like Pavlov's dog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak these two nodes together repeatedly. And what we find is that if you do that with the right network and the right choice of nodes, if you tweak them repeatedly, eventually just the neutral one is sufficient to turn on the response, whereas it didn't do that before. That's the story of Pavlov's dog, and the bell and the meat. It wasn't really a bell, but whatever. The idea is that the network has learned to associate a neutral stimulus with the actually salient stimulus. And this happens, you don't need a cell for this. You don't need any of the machinery of cells. Just a small collection of chemicals wired appropriately will already give you 5 or 6 different kinds of learning: sensitization, habituation, associative learning, and so on.
This means that basic chemical systems, before reaching the level of complexity in biology where we typically think life and intelligence emerges, these basic systems are capable of a variety of different categories of learning. Other researchers have shown that chemical droplets can solve mazes, demonstrating a sort of primitive intelligence. Understanding just how much of our natural world has varying degrees to and negotiating with reality, a reality where intelligence emerges at a much deeper level and in far more varied systems.
Yeah,
the tools that people use to study memory, learning, goal-directedness, problem solving in behavioral cognitive sciences, and can you apply them to the kinds of things I'm talking?
Yeah, that's what I find interesting, is that this sort of cognitive ability can happen without brains. How we're just evolving and understanding more through this kind of research. It's the same sort of stuff that was discovered through like slime molds. They do problem solving, solve mazes, finding resources for food and energy and things of that nature. Nature has embedded in it, it seems to be like a form of cognition, a form of intelligence. And that's really what this research is sort of pointing to, right? Now, Chris Moore says, yeah. Well, to me, there's still the woo factors in your statements. It's just that you are rewording neuroplasticity. What do you say to that, Sophia?
No, because bioinformation fields and they interact with organisms. So the organism actually integrates this information from a bioelectric informational field. And his work demonstrates that. Okay. So that's not true what you're saying.
Yeah. It's just that a lot of this research, I think that we've been conditioned for so long with this paradigm of physicalism, and that everything is sort of a blind process, like evolution is a blind process. But as we start to learn from this sort of stuff, is that possibly and probably, plausibly, according to Levin, is that evolution in biological systems is intelligence all the way down. It's on a spectrum. And so this is how nature expresses itself. Go ahead. I don't know if you're chopping up roboting.
Scott, do me a favor and read.
Go ahead.
I'm roboting right now.
On my end, I don't know. Does everybody out there, is she roboting, or is it just me? Because I've come to learn that it's sometimes just me. So if anybody can give me a little feedback. Meantime, go ahead.
Can you read that guy's Can you read that guy's statement again for me?
Sure. Chris Moore. And welcome, Chris Moore. Glad yeah, he's saying that you chop up a lot, so it is kind of roboting. Maybe maybe killing the image, the
Let
video
me
might help.
let me no, let me switch. Yeah, I probably will do that. Let's see if it's better. So he said, well, to me, there is still the woo factor. That is so funny.
And yeah, and we'll open the stage up and we can get what you mean. Where is the woo factor in what statement, you know, so we can kind of let Sophie address
He
that
said that
directly.
we're just rewording neuroplasticity. We are just okay. Let's see. Yeah, I already answered that, but I want to see what the chat GPT says. It says there is overlap with neuroplasticity, but saying this is just neuroplasticity with new words is completely false. It says, and shows the person doesn't understand what Levin is doing. So let me break it down so you can erase that argument cleanly. Neuroplasticity equals brain remodeling itself. Neuroplasticity is nervous system specific. It deals with synaptic changes, neural rewiring, brain region compensation, changes in neural pathways, learning, and memory. It is brain only and neuron only. This is extremely important. Now watch the contrast. Levin's work equals non-neural cognition. That's what his whole work's based on. Like what?
Right.
Plus body-wide field intelligence. Levin is studying cells with no brain, tissues with no neurons, animals that still retain memories after their brain is removed, regeneration directly by bioelectric fields, body pattern memory stored outside neural tissue, and cell decision making that does not involve neuroplasticity. This has nothing to do with neuroplasticity because neuroplasticity requires neurons. Levin's work is about cognition without neurons. They are entirely different domains. So, I mean, can't get any clearer. Neuroplasticity says synapses based on use and repetition. Bioelectric patterning says a field level blueprint tells cells what organs to grow, where to grow them, and when to stop, and how to regenerate. So yeah, two completely different things.
Yeah. And
Neuroplasticity is the brain adapting to new information. Michael Levin's work is about how the entire body uses electrical fields to encode information, guide growth, coordinate healing, and store pattern memory outside the brain.
right. And for me the problem comes in, it's just because of what we want to believe. You know, sometimes we're so dogmatic in our beliefs that we want to interpret
But
the
reality
data the
don't
way
care what
we
you believe.
want to, you know.
Yeah, but reality doesn't care what you believe.
Right. Right. And you know, as far as guided evolution, that's exactly what the work of Levin here talks about, is that all intelligence is collective intelligence. He has a whole video about that, and we've kind of went over that too. But again, don't take my word for it or our word for it. I would say pull up the papers, pull up the research yourself, and don't stick to just one source. You know, it's not just Michael Levin. There's a lot of different sources for this that support that. yeah, that's a big admission, but it's the truth. That's what Michael Levin is stating explicitly. I don't know how to drive that home any further. Anybody can say that. That's like saying, well, oh, it's a big jump to say that, humans evolved. Suppose I was a creationist, and you say, well, there's so much evidence. Look at what Darwin wrote. Look at his book. Oh, I think you're just reading into his book. He's not really saying that. It's like you have to go to the book. You have to go to the consensus, go to the evidence, rather, and, everybody's free to interpret things the way they want, but we can discuss it, and I can open up the stage
Joel,
and we can discuss it openly. But what were you going to say, Sophia?
I was just gonna say, and Joel asked if it's a physical field or a mental field, and I keep trying to explain to Joel from my LFM standpoint, and he, it's physical and mental. Because the distinction between physical and mental breaks down at the field level. Like it just breaks down at that level. You got to understand what I'm saying, Joel.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
going to put the
physical
link up.
and informational. It's just like your body. Like that's your thoughts and your body. It exists at the same time. It's physical and mental.
Right. And, in my opinion, I think that what we're really seeing is a paradigm shift. I think, there's obvious problems with every worldview, by the way. Every worldview has some kind of problem with it. Um, but if we value science, if we value objective evidence as it's presented to us, then you should be consistent with that and just accept the evidence for where it leads you. Because, we can believe in materialism religiously, and it's okay to have your beliefs. Some people don't want to believe that intelligence is collective. They wouldn't want to believe that cognition goes all the way down, that it's on a spectrum rather than a category. But for me, I just go by the evidence.
So
I just go by the evidence.
So I would say, yes, I agree. And I would say to Joel, that the bioelectric field is a physical field, but also it encodes memory, it carries instructions, it stores goals, it regulates identity, it holds pattern blueprints, and these are mental properties. So the field is physical energy carrying mental information. You see what I'm saying? That's why I keep saying it's both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I like his work. It's really illuminating and changing the way that we look at things, and it's through experience, and I can share even more videos if it may help. He's got a lot of different videos out here that kind of drive home that point. And I've sort of been in love with his work. And of course, you guys know I sort of lean idealist as an idealist. I lean that way. And so, yeah, it resonates with me personally. Now, I know that it's maybe sort of controversial with people who may be leaning towards the materialist sort of side of it. For them, they're just going to reject it out of hand because it doesn't fit their beliefs, And but I think the work for itself speaks. If you're an agnostic person, you don't have any judgment either way. I would just encourage you look at the work for yourself. It's really interesting. But I'm going to try to find something here that I can share that I thought was really good. That kind of drives home that point, because collective intelligence, this concept is kind of key here in understanding what we're talking about. Is the fact that intelligence is top down, bottom up, however you want to look at it. It is a fact. It is something that's demonstrated. So let me see if I can find that. I think it was on a big think. And I will pull this up. It's a big thing, little sketch or video. Let me see. Yeah. Here we go. Give me just a moment. My stuff is moving so slow, guys. I apologize. I need to really, I'm trying to step this channel up. When I get on my feet, I can start really focusing on that. For right now, I'm a little at a disadvantage with my internet and my computer and all of that good stuff. So anyways, here we go. Come on, computer. And when you get a chance, we'll jump in, Joel, because I'm kind of trying to understand what you're saying out there. You're saying, so your view is that it's not the subjective field, but it's both mental and physical. I'm not sure what you mean. Let me pull this video up. And let's go for it. Hold on one second. Oh my God. Hmm.
Tom wants to know about how long till the stage opens up.
Yeah, we can open. Actually, let's go ahead. I'm having some technical problems here getting this video to share. So yeah, let's go ahead and open it up. And I have Objective Ethics joining us now. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, what's
Just
going
trying
on?
to sort out the. Good morning, sister. Good morning, brother. No, I'm just trying to sort out the cobwebs. My fucking work schedule got absolutely fucked this last week. I got major drama at work, and last night I was there way late, so I overslept. I do apologize. In fact, it's bad. I got to figure something out. I may end up leaving my job, do something else. But yeah, I'm just really
Damn, we're all going
confused.
through it, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing right now as far as that goes. I may deal with the drama. I hate drama, and I don't need it in my life. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may stay, I may go, but I got to get that sorted out today. But I was just confused. I was trying to figure out what you guys were doing today. I saw Tom showed up. Looks like Tom's in here now. So my plan today was to interview Tom. Are we still rolling with that now that everyone's together?
Scott,
Can you guys
are
hear
you
me?
present? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we can just
I'm
wrap
pretty sure
up.
we
We can.
are.
Okay.
We were just gonna like open up some questions that people may have about what we just presented, and then we can go and move on and pick up where you two left off at.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, and I'm just trying to catch up with all this. So I'll let you guys finish your thing, and then just let me know whenever it's time. And then I got some questions I wanted to talk about with Tom. I wanted to introduce Tom to our audience, and just kind of focus on him and what he wants to talk about. So just let me know when you guys are wrapped up with this, and I'll just mute myself here.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
Thank
Joel,
you,
if you want to.
Joel. We all appreciate that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do. We're all kind of
Oh, I was just responding to
disorganized right now. We're unorganized because of all the drama I've been going through. I've been missing so much and just getting really confused about a lot of things. So kind of came up with this topic at the last minute in order to have something interesting to present, but not remembering that we had this thing lined up. So if you want to jump in, Joel, with any questions you have really quick, we can kind of go over that with you, because I want to respect your questions and try to address what we can. I don't want to spend too much time. I think we've been at it for 45 minutes, so we want to get to what the topic was supposed to be today here shortly. That was my bad. But yeah, if you want to hop in, Joel, feel free, and we can go for that if you'd like. Or anybody else, if you have any questions, you can feel free to join the stage. So, and I think one of the things, I think if I'm not mistaken, Joel is confused about what I'm saying about both. Not sure what you mean about that. What?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is, and I can provide a little bit of clarity. Like the bioelectrical field is definitely physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Levin, he doesn't attribute anything to consciousness. He doesn't go into mysticism. He keeps it strictly scientific. And so idealists or mystics, we take it a step further and we say that there is an even larger field, which is the conscious field, the collective conscious field, and so that's the only difference between his work and our work. But if we look at it logically, there's always a field that information comes from before there is a change in the shape of matter. You see what I'm saying? Joel, hello. Hello, wie geht's dir?
Hello, Joel. How are you, sir?
Coming through? Can y'all read me?
I don't.
You were coming through. Yeah, you're starting to come through.
All right, man.
Turn 4.
Yeah, I realized I didn't have much battery, so I'm sitting here on the plug.
Oh yeah, and this StreamYard is a resource hog, so yeah, you better plug it up.
Yeah, exactly. So I might talk for a little while. You guys said you didn't have a lot of time. I'm hearing some echoes from like 30 seconds ago, but what do you guys want to, you want me to kind of give a little better defense of the questions I was asking, or what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, just clarity, because I don't want to straw man you or talk about
Mhm.
stuff that you're not even referring to, because I'm just
Okay.
kind of confused. That's all.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe it would be good to just kind of say y'all are talking about the observations of a physicist, and so these things are physical things, not in a like claiming to have some kind of ontological status, but just this is the category that we call physical stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if let's say a physicist is observing something and they're like, you know what, I think we're looking at the fundamental layer of reality, then we would have to say that if that's a given, which of course I don't think it could be, but if that's the hypothetical that we're considering, then it would follow that the foundation of reality was a physical thing because it's being studied by a physicist.
Right, but Joel, we weren't making that claim either. We were saying that if cognition can happen in the absence of a brain, then that means exactly that. So his
I get
work
that.
centers
I'm working my
around.
way around to that. I'm just
Right.
saying we are
So
talking about
yeah, right.
physical
But that's still
observations of physical stuff.
right. But that still blows materialist view out of the water. You see what I'm saying?
Can you flesh out why exactly, and then we'll talk about that.
Hey man, I did that already. Like, what do you don't tell me specifically what you don't
did it when I
understand,
wasn't.
or you make
Yeah,
me feel.
okay.
You make
Yes. Okay.
you were
Sure.
there because you were shooting messages you were shooting off
Well,
questions
right. I was
in the
hoping now we could talk about it
thingy.
when I'm able to actually respond to what you're saying and give you that feedback in a more meaningful
Okay,
way. If you don't want to, I can try to push
so
us
just
there.
tell me. No, just tell me exactly what part you're confused about, and I will
Okay.
try
All
to
right.
respond directly.
You guys are saying this blows materialism out of the water, and I'm saying we're still looking at material objects. To the extent that you're saying, hey, there's these memories or these tendencies for these things to act the way they do, nobody is showing that this is coming from anything other than material stuff. No one's demonstrated that
Okay,
there's
but
some
does
non-physical.
materialism state that consciousness? Does materialism state that consciousness arises from the brain
Some do and some
or
don't.
emerges
I think
from the
we've
brain?
talked about how epiphenomenalists will just
Well,
kind of
that's the
deny
version.
consciousness is a thing that needs explaining at all. But what does
Right.
that change?
I was talking
Why are
about
we
that view.
switching from a defense?
I
Why are
was
we
talking.
switching from a defense of how this supports your conclusion to a challenge about some other conclusion?
I'm talking about the stance of materialists who say that consciousness emerges from the brain. So his work literally proves that it doesn't necessarily,
Okay,
because he
let me.
studies organisms. He studies organisms that have cognition, and he
So
also
let's say
talks
they've got it.
about how uh, the organisms, right, integrate information from a field, a bioelectrical field, which essentially shapes or reshapes the forms of matter,
So it's all physical stuff happening.
kind of like what happens with what happens with like cymatics, which you know how that works. So like I am an idealist, but I'm a different type of idealist. I have my own model, and LFM states that consciousness cannot be anything within itself that it projects outwardly, that it already isn't. So it's physical and conscious, it's physical and mental. That's my stance. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to figure
we're
out.
talking,
What
but
part
we're
of that
talking.
disturbs you?
Well, we were talking about justifications for thinking that, and I'm saying, what are they? So saying, here's what I believe, isn't giving me that. You get that, right? And switching to materialists, what
Again, I'm sorry.
materialists.
Come again.
Am I coming
What
through clearly,
conclusion
or
do you exactly have a problem with?
you guys
No,
said
I didn't hear you
this?
right. You're saying what?
There's a
No,
lag
just
too.
focus on me. What I said, because I'm not Scott. I'm me. Just focus on me. What I said.
Did you say that these findings disprove or point away from materialism?
The version of materialism that says that consciousness emerges from the brain. Yes.
Oh, that's no problem. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to point out was the idea that, well, you don't need a brain to have consciousness is fine with me. The kind of consciousness that we're having, I still think is emerging from our brains, right? But to the extent that we're saying, hey, look at these other processes that really fit the definition and they're not coming from brains, they're still dependent on physical structures, whether it be, the body of the planarian worm, or it is, a field of um, whatever kind of bioelectrical field you're talking about. These are physical things. So if we're saying, hey, intelligence or
They're physical
cognitive
and mental, though.
behavior, conscious experience seems to be just kind of entailed in all these things, then it still seems like we're saying that physical things are causing these things.
I
Yeah, but
don't
they are
see that
physical
though.
and mental at the same time.
But that's the
They are physical
claim.
and mental.
But that's the claim, right? That if we don't assume your view, we don't get. The claim that it's physical is just kind of borne out by the fact that physicists are studying it. This is the category of stuff we call physical because physicists are studying it. Your claim that it's a mental thing is the thing that I don't think we are seeing that in the observation. Are you thinking that we're seeing that?
Yeah, because
So what are
how
you
would you
saying? You're saying
how let me throw it this way. It could be just a way you're
go ahead.
looking at it. So how would you explain like truth tables in biology? If evolution is just kind of like the evolution of consciousness from a brain, right? It's responding to environmental pressures or whatever the case is, and it's kind of constrained by that, only that, like a blind process. How would you then explain like truth tables? That's what I don't
Oh, and
understand.
I don't know why I would need to for you guys to tell me the reason you think something points to something else. It to me, I'm not trying to give anybody grief, but like when
Right.
I say, why do you believe something, and then 2 or 3, 10 seconds later, I'm getting asked how I can explain something. I'm like, this is not an answer to the
Well, right,
question.
right,
I'm
right.
not going
Well,
to
I'm
accuse you
asking
of
that.
trying to shift the burden or,
No,
play
no, no.
the appeal to ignorance, but you are not answering the question and giving the justification. And if you
Well,
have a justification, you ought to just give it, right? Don't beat around the
it's
bush with all this other stuff.
right. Well, the reason I'm asking the question it's just to kind of focus us back to what the point really is. So it's kind of like a materialist could say, I could say like there's a soul and it just exists outside the brain. You are your soul, right? And then a materialist would rightly ask, well, how do you explain that when you damage your brain, it changes your conscious experience? How do you explain that? Right? That's not shifting the burden. That's trying to make a point, a
Okay,
greater point to kind of
can I
focus
jump
on.
in
So
here?
go ahead. Go
But
ahead.
the point isn't to
I would
give
like
the
to jump.
justification
I would
that
like
you
to
have.
jump in here with something for
Yeah,
a
Go
second.
ahead. Okay.
Okay, just let me get this straight. So you're saying, Joel, that the fact that I'm saying that it's not just physical, it is also mental. You're saying that that is a conclusion that can't really be substantiated. That's what you're saying, right? Because I want to make sure that I respond
I'm
to the right
looking
thing.
I'm looking for someone to point me to the connection between what's being observed and that conclusion. What is the reason to think that conclusion is true
Okay,
based on what's being
so I'm going to
observed?
ask you, is information physical?
Is this the reason that you think something's true, Sophia? Because again, you're asking me questions when I'm asking you
Just
for justifications.
let me just ask
These
you,
these are
is
not easy
information physical?
questions. Yeah, these are not easy questions to answer, but what I think about it should have no bearing on why you believe what you believe. And that's what I'm asking. If I start off with the question,
Okay,
why do
so
you believe what
I
you
will say
believe?
that
And before you
you
give me
could,
the
I'm
reason,
going to
you're
tell you,
asking me these
calm down, Joe.
questions.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm only asking questions to kind of you know, prompt your gears a little bit, right? Get them moving. That's all I'm doing. So I'm not attacking you. So I would say yes, because science treats information as real, right? But also no, because information is not reducible to mass or energy alone. So that's kind of where, we get that from. Information is not a material substance, but it is not mental either. It's like a third category almost.
As in language? Because like how you
It's
describe
information. It's
science.
information, and can information. I'm saying it's
Sorry.
information. It's real because we can measure it as data. At the same time, though, it can't be reduced to mass and energy only either.
Yes,
So
it
what
can.
is it?
It can be reduced down to mass and energy very simply. It's neurons firing in your brain. If I ask you to imagine a purple elephant, you're going to imagine a purple elephant. It doesn't make it real in your brain, but it makes the idea real. And what's happening in your brain is the neurons are
Yeah,
firing back and forth, and that is real. That is physical.
And that's why when I said
right. But then
neuroplasticity.
but then we 1 second. But that's the thing. Neuroplasticity is not the same as Michael Levin's work because it doesn't include a brain. There is no brain. There are no neurons.
You don't need a brain to have thing like on a rudimentary level. You don't really need a brain to do stuff either way. But if you were talking about high functioning, yes. But if you look at mycelia, which is mushrooms, the neuroplasticity is just the ability to essentially connect and reconnect itself by growing as a network. And but it's like where's the food, where's water, where is this and that. It's just based like it's not complex thinking anyway.
Right,
Well,
but that's like Michael Levin's work doesn't just talk about doing stuff. It's not talking about like a bacteria swimming towards sugar. That's doing stuff, right? It's storing long-term memory, it's integrating information, it's holding a pattern of what the organism should look like, it's regenerating ahead with behavioral preferences, it's making context sensitive decisions, it's correcting structural errors, it's maintaining a body blueprint, it's goal directed, remodeling, solving morphological problems, choosing between possible outcomes. We can't just brush that off with,
But
oh well, bacteria
but is
just
it
does stuff.
something? But is it something non-physical that's doing that? That's the question. Is so
well,
far
the
it
logic,
I
seems
mean,
well,
like
the
y'all are
logic in that,
y'all are basically confusing
well,
reflex with cognition, and his study is precisely about cognition.
right. So like the logic here is that it's mathematical, right? So, like for example, Levin will talk about a cell's biological gradients. It's signaling. So it's binary gene switches. They're all governed by the mathematics of relation, not by improvisation or random mutation, like through materialism. Evolution seems to move through information states like math, like what we describe with math, like it shapes. It doesn't, it does not create the material form, so to speak. So like I was referring to like the triangle, the rather the truth tables, and Michael Levin uses like this analogy, right? Like imagine evolution as a sort of like a geometer, right? Seeking to draw like a triangle. So once two angles are fixed, the third is not really determined, not by chance, but by geometry itself. So in that same way, evolution is not searching endlessly through chaos. It discovers stable patterns. So they're kind of like pre-written into the fabric of the possibility states. So these patterns are more like forms, like nature's intelligence. So preconditions that sort of exist before all of that. So like in biological systems, they're sort of like interpreters of those mathematical truths, so to speak. He talks about Platonic forms, and that's what he's saying. That's what he's explaining that stuff through, if that makes sense.
There's a lot,
think it-
but it's like one thing that we have to like Greg to like note here is that like other that we wanted to atoms matter wants to be stable when in stable form it wants to be stable. So is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like there's like this mathematical what they mathematicians like to call it Platonic forms, like it's some sort of deterministic informational probability state, you might call it, I don't know. And it sort of expresses itself through evolution, like in this case in biological systems. So the story for the longest time, like under the first understandings of evolution by natural selection, was all of this stuff was just sort of blind chance. It was all sort of just responding to pressures, environmental pressures. That's what sort of shaped a biological system. But what we're learning, what he's sort of demonstrating in his experiments and research, is that there seems to be patterns that are present that sort of create this novel intelligence in order to kind of guide the systems, to reach goals like intelligent goal setting. So it's not necessarily the same story that we were kind of taught early on, which is fine. To me, I think it's just great. It's like we're starting to learn something new, and that's what science wants to do. It wants to learn more, and this can be really helpful, like in regeneration. Like if you can actually talk to cancer and somehow communicate with cancer to say stop. You can actually do that if this stuff is true. And
Well,
that's
if we're
what he's
talking about
finding
gray
out.
fat, well, or brown fat, I think. Anyway, but it's or they basically found a amino acid that essentially can starve the cancer out, but we're still talking about manipulating matter over here, essentially. But yeah, anyway, I'm
Well,
just gonna shut up.
you know, right. Well, that's
But
fine. And I mean, you
an
know,
idealist for
I was just going to say the other thing too is, you know, when it comes to idealism, right? You know, we can sort of talk about, well, actually, I don't want to go into that because we have to actually bring objective ethics on in
well, let me
Tom's
just say
takes. And
this
I want to
one
let them
thing
do that. So
to
go ahead. Yeah.
let me just say this one last thing to Joel. So, you know, as an idealist or a mystic or whatever, you know, we don't require the field to be non-physical. Only that information precedes matter.
Yeah.
Is that,
Okay, that's
can
fair.
you,
That's
you
fair.
know,
And
deal with that?
likewise, I would say back to you that, like, as someone who wants good reasons to be convinced of something, I don't mind the idea that something could be both mental and physical, but I need some kind of good reason to think it's mental.
Look at the research. Go check it out.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, is which part of the research points you to
Saying is
that? I
that if
didn't
the
hear that
physical,
conclusion
all
from
I'm saying
anybody.
is, Joel, that if the physical field does mental work, then the physical is not what we thought it was. That's what we're all saying. The categories
Or
break down.
or
You know
maybe
what
the
I'm saying?
physical is more than we
There's
thought it
more to the
was.
story than what
We were making
Yes.
assumptions about what the physical can
Yes.
do and what it
that's
can't do, and we
possible
were
too.
wrong about
Right.
that.
Right. Good.
Absolutely
And
Good
that's why the
point.
idea that the brain is causing consciousness doesn't become a hard problem when you start saying, well, maybe it's not as hard, maybe things are not the way they seemed. Maybe physical stuff is really capable of doing so much more than we thought.
Right.
Right. And
Exactly,
so I feel
Joel.
like
But that's what I've
that
been saying.
explanation is
That's
Exactly.
what
still
I've been
on the
saying as a
Exactly.
table.
mystic.
But that's a
Exactly.
That's
physical
exactly what we
explanation.
say as
No, it's
mystics.
That's a
not. That's a
physical. Yes, it
panpsychist.
is. No,
That's a
it's not.
panpsychist view.
Okay, but
Materialism.
panpsychism would be within
Do you
physical,
know what
because you're saying
materialism means?
physical stuff exists, and then physical stuff has the property of having consciousness.
Do you
But
know that the
physical stuff
hard
is the
problem,
ontological basis.
the hard problem of consciousness is only a hard problem on materialism? Do you know why? Because it has no way to link the causes.
Unless
It
it
has no way
proposes
to. It
panpsychism.
has no explanatory power. All it really
Unless it
does.
proposes panpsychism, in which case it's just asserting that consciousness is a fundamental
Right.
property of physical stuff. And it can
Exactly.
assert
But I
that
already
in the
told
same
you
way that
as a mystic, consciousness is physical. So
if we're going to assert that consciousness is caused by this or caused by that, then there's no problem with asserting that the brain is the cause, right? If we're going
No,
to
there
assert
is.
that it's
There is.
fundamental, no.
Well, you have.
Well,
You
the
have
problem
to.
isn't with the justifications, because we're not giving any when we just assert that it is. When we just say we're assuming it's fundamental, or we're assuming it's a fundamental property of something that
Well,
just
you could
is
say the
in
same thing
everything,
about. You could say the same
that's
thing
just
about spin and
assertions.
charge. You could say the same thing about spin and charge. Those are fundamentals. That's what fundamentals mean. They don't need any explanatory power. See, explanatory power comes from what you assume at the bottom. Like if everything is matter, then you don't have to explain matter. You don't have to, because you just assert that everything is matter. But inherent in that particular claim, you're going to have the hard problem of consciousness. That's where that comes out at. Now, if you flip it on its head and say idealism or panpsychism or something like that, now you have the hard problem of matter. That's what happens there.
Can I
So
just
either
add?
way, you're going to have some kind of problem in one way or the other. So go ahead.
I was going to add one thing. I mean, if we look at consciousness as the brain's interface to reality, it takes the ghost completely out of the machine.
There is no
It really
ghost in the
does.
machine, on my view, though.
Oh,
what now?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I don't. I'm sort of a non-dualist, so and that's what idealism is. It's a non-dualist thing. I think some interpretations of panpsychism are non-dualist as well. It's just one thing. So the ghost and the machine thing, yeah, you got the interaction problem. You know, if you got that interaction problem, that's what kind of kills the soul idea, the ghost and the machine stuff. But idealism just simply
I just wanted to say,
starts
I just wanted to say, Joel,
with consciousness.
you did good. You did really good.
And
Because
so it
by admitting
doesn't
that,
need
you
to,
know,
you don't need to
by
explain
admitting
it in
that,
terms of other things. You don't need to say,
Thank you.
sorry, I
think
must
I heard a comment
have a
there that
lag.
was
I'm
kind,
sorry.
and I
it's a
appreciate
lag.
that.
Yeah,
I
Joel, you
was
did
just saying that
great job
Joel,
admitting that. Yeah.
you came a long way because you came a long way because by saying that, you know, there might be much more to physicality that we understand. That's exactly all we're trying to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I hope you see what
That's
I'm
where
saying.
we're trying to.
If in fact we live in a purely physical world, but really physical stuff is capable of doing all these things that we're having trouble explaining, then that also kind of fits. So to the extent that we're willing to grant those things, it's kind of like Scott and I were talking about the other day. Consciousness is a special case, no matter what explanation you're trying to put to it.
Right.
It's obviously kind of a one of a kind thing as far as we're concerned. And so whatever's going on, it's going to be special. So again, same thing with this conversation. I think
Right.
we can all admit that there's some wild stuff
Joel,
going on.
can we say progress is being made?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys
Can we
learned
say
anything,
progress
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
in the conversation? Yeah.
All I'm saying is
Yeah,
that actually
absolutely.
is not the you know,
Absolutely.
traditional materialist viewpoint, and it really is more like neutral monism or
Yeah.
post
Well, you know,
materialism.
there was a time I
They
think
call it post materialism.
where I think not just materialism, but science in general looked at, you know, the world of animals and plants and other living things and kind of decided, you know, we're the really conscious things, and then maybe these things that are like us or, you know, kind of similar and on down the line, but kind of assumed that you know, it was really the brain. It had to be the brain, right? And that's just kind of a way of being, you know, human centric and human focused. Is that, well, ours is seems to be about the brain, and so the brain must be there. And I'm perfectly fine with saying, well, it doesn't have to be a brain. A brain is just what it looks like when it's been adapted over millions and billions of years to be better and better and better at it. That's what it starts to be like, but it can start off as simple as a cell. I'm absolutely comfortable with the idea that the very first living things must have had some kind of way to drive themselves towards goals, you know, and do the things that Levin is talking about seeing in these other things, you know, that like once something was alive, it was doing those things and copying itself and into more things that were capable of doing more and better, you know, and on down the line. So that's kind of how I see it, is that I haven't I mean and like I said in the group, I definitely hear that he's not saying what I'm saying, and he's got a way better understanding of what's going on than I have. But again, it's just I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the connection drawn by him. Uh, and also today with you guys, I don't see nobody's connecting the dots for me.
Right, but I would say it's still
It
progress because if the physical contains more than matter, which is what you're saying, like maybe the physical is not fully understood, you know, you're basically saying that fields and physical are physical and informational, but you're saying that it doesn't necessarily mean it's the opposite way. It could be just an aspect of what's physical, and that's actually what my model says.
Okay, yeah, but
So
you
we're
know,
not, I'm saying
um,
we're not in disagreement.
yeah, and I think often when we dig into these kind of metaphysical questions, we realize that like we're really just often using different words for similar concepts. But
Right.
but again, I think the thing that struck me there was that um, oh, an idea came and went. I'm sorry, but again, thanks
but you're
thank
just
you again
looking for
for the kind
connection.
words and letting me you know
Yeah, Joel.
do my ranting
Absolutely,
and
man.
everything.
Yeah, well, that's why we love to have you, because we need that kind of pushback. We need that kind of challenge. And I made a Substack article yesterday talking about, worldviews are just, expressions of a limited brain of humans. We're all just apes on a planet. Who says that we're supposed to have the absolute truth about metaphysics, right? All we can really do is do analysis and comparison. That's all it
That's
is.
what I'm always saying. I don't think we need
Yep.
it. We don't need it
Yeah.
to live. We
Nope.
didn't need it to survive throughout
Nope.
history, and we still don't really need it to live our lives. But it is so fascinating in spite of
And
that,
it's
isn't it?
fun. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. That's why we
Well,
do
I'm
it,
glad.
man.
Thanks for letting me in on the fun.
Hell yeah, Joel.
I do want to
Anytime,
hear
brother.
from Tom and Daniel.
Yeah. Let's get to it, man.
I can get out of here if you guys need me to.
All right, brother. We're gonna do that. Let's give them the stage.
Yeah.
And
Later, y'all.
all right, later, Joel. Love you, man. All right. Objective Ethics. He's the co-host. He had a debate with Tom Takes, I guess a couple weeks ago on objective morality. And so we're going to let them take the stage and talk about that. We're going to give this Levin stuff a break right now, and we'll shift gears right into that. So if you guys want to go ahead, whoever wants to start, you guys go for it.
Yeah, let me just go ahead. First of all, I don't think we're going to talk about the debate unless Tom wants to. I think we
No,
pretty
no,
much
Okay.
yeah,
fleshed out
no,
our
it's
ideas
okay, it's okay.
pretty well in that. But I wanted to when I invited Tom to join us today, and I apologize for being a few minutes late this morning. Like I said, I had a crazy night at work last night, and I'm just kind of dragging my heels. I've got about a half a cup of coffee in me so far, so I'm doing better than I was 5 minutes ago, and I'll start to warm up here. But my intention was to basically, uh, essentially, just ask Tom a few questions to get to know him better. I was really impressed with Tom in his debate performance. For one thing, Tom, you did a great job in that debate. I really enjoyed having that kind of healthy competition. You're the strongest opponent that I've had so far. Really, really enjoyed having you there. And I've had some conversations with Tom in Discord. And so I met Tom through a mutual, what I consider down to be kind of a mutual friend, but there's a gentleman named Nathaniel. And Scott, he's the Catholic who came into that after debate show, Taurus Necros Productions. And so the way that I even met with Nathaniel is Nathaniel had a video, the Catholic guy, he put up a video that came across my YouTube feed. Catholic has a discussion with an atheist or debate with an atheist or something like that. And you know me, I'm always easily triggered by that kind of stuff. And so I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And it was Tom talking to Nathaniel. And I was so impressed with the way they both gentlemen were very polite. And Tom had some excellent questions that he was asking Nathaniel about the validity of Catholicism and defending the atheist position. And it's so rare to see people have a polite conversation in that arena. And so I thought, I reached out to Nathaniel to say, hey, there were some questions that you asked that seemed to go unanswered. And even though I thought Tom actually explained it fairly clearly, Nathaniel seemed to be, there are some things that Nathaniel said that just blew me away. Like when Tom mentioned that the Gospels were anonymously written, and Nathaniel's like, oh, I've never heard that before. I thought, how can a Catholic not know this? This seems like, kind of some basic stuff. And given my background in religion and religious studies, I thought maybe I could break it down a little easier. It's for Nathaniel. So anyway, so I ended up reaching out to Nathaniel. He had me on his show. He interviewed me, and we ended up getting along really well. And then that's just kind of how this whole thing started. And then I got in touch with Tom through Nathaniel. And so I wanted a chance to reach out to Tom today and ask him a few questions because Tom has a more unique kind of an approach or experience, I should say, similar to myself. I'm a lifelong agnostic. I don't have a deconversion story. And Tom, he said that he was a cradle atheist, the term meaning cradle atheist. I'll let him explain all that to you. But a lot of people in this community, in the skeptic community, are deconstructing from religion, and they had to go through this fairly traumatic process, it seems. And I was just really curious. I wanted to ask Tom some questions about, what he thinks the differences are between someone who's never been a believer and how they approach these conversations with religious people versus the people that are carrying around a lot of baggage that are deconstructing. And when I say baggage, I don't mean to be critical or disrespectful. It's just there seems to be a lot of emotional trauma that comes from leaving a religion. And I see these religions as being cults, frankly. And so that doesn't surprise me whatsoever that carries some baggage. So let me just start by letting Tom introduce himself, and then we'll just kind of free flow from there. And Scott and Sophia, whatever you have, questions for Tom or comments, anything you guys want to add to it, everyone feel free. Joel, you didn't have to leave if you didn't want to. If you want to get to know Tom better, that was my friend Chris Moore. I didn't know he was coming by today. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but it was nice to see him jump up in the panel for the first time. So trying to build a little community here, and it seems like it's starting to draw people, and I appreciate that. So Tom, why don't you take the floor and just let us know who you are and what's up with this cradle atheist stuff? How's that work out?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Daniel, for inviting me and for the compliments. I've enjoyed our talks. Excuse me. I've enjoyed our talks on Discord, and the debate we had was quite fun. I enjoyed the back and forth, and it was quite different for me to debate someone that's also an atheist, and we're kind of in the same camp on one side, but we're not in the same camp on another. So that was that definitely posed some challenges, but at the same time was fun. So what I mean by this whole cradle atheism, and I just recently found out that it's a pretty extreme minority. Only 7% of self-confessing atheists are what they call cradle atheists. So meaning born into a secular home, never really had a God thing in the home. You may have went to church like for Christmas or Easter or something like that, but that's as far as it went. Like there was no iconography, there was nothing of the sort. So for me personally, it was strange because the first time I ever got kind of introduced to religion was at summer camp around 11, 12 years old. And I got asked by a bunch of kids, "What religion are you?" And I had no idea. I had no idea what to tell them. I was like, I was completely befuddled. And then I remember, oh wait, we went to Orthodox church. I'm like, I think we're Orthodox. And it was a predominantly, a lot of Jewish kids at the summer camp went in, and they're like, oh, so you're Orthodox Jew? And I'm like, no, I think it's just Orthodox, right? But I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know anything about it. Go home, talk to my dad, and start walking. We're outside walking somewhere, and I asked him, like, Dad, do we believe in God? Like, what's up? Because I got asked the question, I didn't really know what to say. He goes, look up. I look up. He goes, what do you see? Sky. All right. You see God up there? No, exactly. And that was pretty much the end of it. It's like if you can't sense something, if you can't interact with something, if there's nothing really substantial there, it's just as good as non-existence as far as I'm concerned. I can't interact with this. I can't see it. There's nothing there as far as I can see. I've never had any kind of supernatural experience or anything of the sort. And to me, it's more, I maybe in the last year I found out about the whole agnostic thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, this makes a lot of sense because I always used to just call myself an atheist because I didn't believe in God. I thought that's what the hat meant, and I put it on. All right, fine. So I found out about this agnostic position where it's like the God concept itself is not really coherent because it means so many different things to different people, and it made more sense to me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of what I felt all along, but I never knew it actually had a label as opposed to just not believing in God. So I find that, the cradle versus the converted atheist is very different. Definitely the converted atheist I find have more anger. It's as though they've been duped, and they've come out of that kind of feeling of being duped for however many years. A friend of mine on Discord, he's notoriously grumpy about being duped for 40 years within Christianity until he finally deconverted, and he's angry about it. It's obvious, right? Where someone like myself is still more not confused, but just I understand when you're a child, you get indoctrinated, a whole bunch of adults around you as authority figures telling you this thing is real, you're going to believe it, fine. But how you still believe it when you're an adult? It's like still believing in Santa Claus to me. It just never made any sense. So that's, I think, the biggest difference is the cradle atheists are still more confused how people believe this when it's clearly not representative of reality. And the deconverts are more angry that they were duped, but happy that they're out. I don't know. That's kind of where I see it.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. In fact, I was just checking the comments. It looks like some people in our audience are kind of have some interesting things to say about that as well. That is fascinating to me because it's very similar to me to the degree that that I just never got it. But I have a slightly different angle because I had a lot of trauma when I was a kid. My father was murdered, and I went through a lot of adoption homes and stuff like that. So I had all these crazy things happening in my life at such an early age. And the one consistent thing, probably the only consistent thing in my life, is that every family that I got adopted by, every single family was religious. And they're telling me all this stuff about God and this, this typical stuff you hear about religion, how wonderful it is and how God is so loving. And meanwhile, my life is just continuously being unraveled, just thrown in the blender and then spit back out again. And I'm like, where's this God at? What are these people talking about? And then I would hear stories about like the magic zoo boat. And even as a small child, I remember thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. This is literally like what you said. To me, it sounded like a child's story. And I was maturing at such a fast pace because of the stuff that I was going through. It tends to mature you quickly. And so my brain was just, and I could realize that I was just mentally, it seemed like, so far ahead of the adults that I was, that I was this little kid, and these adults were not only tearing my life apart with all these divorces and being adopted and readopted and all this other stuff, orphanages and everything else that I experienced. At the same time, these adults are talking about these things that sounded literally like fairy tales to me, and it just never made the connection. And I was, as an adult now, someone who spent years studying this stuff because I find it completely fascinating, and I love studying history. So I actually studied this stuff in college and other areas, and have been involved in this, formally and informally for decades now. And as much as I find it beautiful and I love the history behind it, and you cannot remove religion from history. I mean, every society, the earliest society that we have any really good records of is obviously when the written record started with the cuneiform writing system, which would be Sumeria. Religion was fully developed by then. So religion was developed way before that. And we even started to find archaeological evidence of what we might consider religious practices in ancient hominids. It's cavemen and even beyond that. It's really fascinating. So these beliefs, these God beliefs, have been a major part of human evolution for some reason or other. Now, I think there's pretty good reasons we can look at in the biology of the human being with the like the hyperactive agency detection device, our problem solving skills, our need to find answers to things, our exploration. We have this drive as human beings to want to explore things. So it does make sense that you could kind of see how we're susceptible to this stuff. But in modern day, with 2025, and there's not just a few people, but 93% of 8.5 billion people on this planet are religious still. That just fucking blows me away. I can't even, it just blows me away that people still talk about this stuff seriously. And now Scott and Sophia both have, excuse me, deconstruction stories. And without going too long into the details, it might be interesting for the audience just to hear different angles and stuff. And Sophia, I don't know if that's something you're comfortable with, because I know you have sustained a lot of trauma from your experiences. So I don't want you to feel pressured to share more than you want to, but I think it might be interesting to see the difference between someone, not, who's never believed this stuff, just people who've gone through a lot of and just one last point is, I'm actually technically, Tom, I'm not an atheist. You mentioned another atheist. I'm actually an agnostic, and there is quite a big difference between the two. But you and I are both right. We're both on the skeptic side of things. We're non-believers. So go ahead, you guys, Scott, Sophia, tell us a little bit about your experience so we can compare all this.
Well, I would say in my case, yes, I did suffer horrendous trauma. And, the thing that trauma does, it kind of fractures your psyche. Let's be real. And it teaches you early on to use different senses. You can't really rely on the same things that people rely on when they're in a safe zone, when they're safe, right? So we just evolve differently, and that's scientifically proven. So we pick up on like pattern recognition in a way that others don't. And that kind of it's triggered by trauma, and it's a self-protective mechanism. So on one hand, it's like a burden because the minute I detect something energetically or on a level of like resonance, before my mind even catches up with it, I immediately go into the mode of analyzing. And that scares people because it makes it look like I have information on things that I should not have known. But again, I will agree with Joel. It's just that reality as we perceive it and the things that we've been taught about it, we don't know it all. As a mystic, I will tell you, we just don't fully understand how reality truly works. So whenever we experience things that seem like woo or seem supernatural, we call it that because we don't understand it. But trauma is definitely linked to people with like so-called extrasensory systems, like PTSD. That's a system, and that's all I got to say about that, if that made any sense.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually. And just two real quick comments. First of all, Chris Moore, if you're still in the chat, no, you didn't crash the party at all. This is actually a little bit disorganized. I should have tightened up the communication between Tom, Scott, Sophia, and myself. And I was about 10 minutes late this morning because of working so late last night. So no, that's no problem. I thought we would be well into this discussion and then have other people join because Chris, I'd like to hear your experiences as well. I know that you're an atheist. I'd be curious to see how your experiences compare. So we will open up this panel at some point again if for anybody who wants to join. So Scott, do you want to throw down just real quick a quick summary of your personal experiences now of how you came to and out, in and out of religion by chance, and do you carry any trauma from that? I
Scott,
think we lost Scott. Scott, you there, brother?
where did you go?
Yeah, I'm here. I just had to step off for a second and get something for the cats real quick. Can you repeat the
Cat's
question?
gotta
I just
eat.
jumped back in. Yep, cats got to eat too.
Yeah, we were just yeah, we were just sharing our backgrounds a little bit because I think for comparative purposes, Tom, I'm sure you heard, cradle atheist, never was a believer. Same thing for me. I was agnostic my whole life, and we know, I'm sure Tom and I have both observed this trauma that can be linked to deconversion. And Sophia has shared some of this in different discussions, and she talked about it here just now about how she definitely does carry. There is a trauma that goes with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said I think I kind of missed the point because I didn't hear everything of what you were saying, but I wanted to add one more thing because I didn't hear that part. Like the way that I was, first of all, I wasn't raised Christian or religious. I was raised atheist. I came into Christianity through a cult that was actually led by my father. So I was trapped in a Christian cult. And basically, I was a devout so-called believer, but more like by force. And at some point, that's what I identified with, and I believe that's who I was. But then I deconstructed, obviously, because I started seeing the holes in it. And that's kind of what happens to when you are a sovereign being. You will see the discrepancy, and you will see how the doctrine actually hurts you more than what it claims to do for you, right? It doesn't feel positive. You start to see all the holes in it. And I think that's how we end up leaving the faith, so to speak.
Okay, that definitely does make more sense. Now, just let me ask one quick follow-up question, Sophia. Would you say that just to make sure I'm clear on this, would you say that you do carry a certain amount of religious trauma that comes with the deconstruction and your experiences in realizing that you were basically manipulated by other human beings into being trapped in this cult, or is that something that you used to experience and now you've moved past, or is it kind of like a PTSD where it can raise certain triggers in certain situations? How does that work for you?
Absolutely. I was severely traumatized by that. I would say, from what I can tell, because I just recently experienced what you could consider an ego death, like brutal as fuck. And for the most part, I feel calibrated now. should I say. But before that, of course, like there were many triggers, and I was struggling with that trauma big time. Big time. It ruined my relationships. It ruined my view on myself. It ruined, I didn't even know my core self, you know? So that is something that took me 45 years to figure out due to the trauma, the religious trauma as well. Other traumas too, but
Man,
mainly the religious trauma. But it also, it also gives you so much insight that when you come out on the other end of it, it's like it was worth it. You know, that there's this like bittersweetness to it.
yeah, no, I can relate
Does
to
that make
that
sense?
because no, I absolutely can relate to that. And I don't want to get too deep into philosophy yet, but there's actually something to that in philosophy. They talk about Nietzsche, who a lot of people think of as kind of one of the first nihilists. Nihilism actually predates Nietzsche, but Nietzsche was such a prolific philosopher and so many people really look into his work. But one of the things that he talked about was how to overcome nihilism, which a lot of people forget that Nietzsche actually had a solution to nihilism. And without making this too long, he did talk about the when you're how would he? Well, okay, I don't want to divert too much. Scott, why don't you say what you had, and then maybe I'll bring that up later. But yeah, though there is something to that. Scott, tell us just a real quick, just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get back to Tom about your background with coming in and out of religion.
Sure, sure. So I was initially raised by cultural Christians. So we didn't really go to church that often. Usually only when, my grandmother would make me go if I went to visit her. She was really hard into the Christianity, but I wasn't really soaking any of that stuff up. But by the time I got to be about 20, 21 years old, I was looking for religion. I was looking for meaning, looking for things. I was dealing with a lot of issues in my life. I was mainly raised, if anything, in martial arts. My dad put me through martial arts because I had anger problems, discipline problems, and stuff like that. So he felt like maybe a good ass whipping would help me, and it kind of did. But I was also becoming abusive. I was kind of abusive. So I was abusing people and starting fights and bar fights, and I was just out of control. And I knew I was out of control, and it was affecting my relationships with my new girlfriend. And I was putting holes in walls and kicking down doors, and I just didn't have any sort of discipline control. Then I discovered Jehovah's Witnesses. They came to my door, they told me all about my problems, and they convinced me that my issue was sin and that I needed Jesus Christ's salvation through Jehovah, who is God. And and they became my family. They sort of took me in, helped me out of my anger issues, gave me something to sort of focus on. I had a goal to actually go and convert the world into Christianity and share the kind of love that I experienced through our Lord Jesus Christ. And so I was going door to door, helping people to understand that, we live in the last days, but we can be saved through Jesus Christ. And Jehovah was going to save everyone to live in a paradise on earth where these things would be no more. And through that process, I became very vigilant. I'm a very focused person, just as I am naturally. So I just sort of took it and ran with it. I used to love to get up every morning and preach the gospel. I used to love to go door to door. I wouldn't just go on Saturdays like everybody else. I was going on my own time. Like right after work, I'd just go knock on doors for the hell of it because I wanted to. And that's how vigilant I was, kind of like an Apostle Paul kind of character, very vigilant and passionate. I was so convinced of it. But then I met a guy when I worked at the Virginia State Police, and he was an atheist, and he would always ask me questions to sort of question my epistemology. And it just opened up a whole new world to me. And I realized, you know what? I don't have any good answers for why I believe what I believe other than emotional, sort of appeals. And that wasn't good enough for me because I was also taught that emotion was never the right reason to believe in things. I was taught that objectives ethics are objective, morals are objective, and the truth is objective, of course, and that God is an objective fact, and that his rules are the objective standard for morality. So when it finally dawned on me, when it was really revealed to me that I was actually choosing my religious beliefs out of an emotional appeal, it really dawned on me that, wait a minute, there's a contradiction in my life. And as I started studying epistemology, philosophy, I became a hard atheist type. Then I became an angry atheist. And then my whole point was I would go out and argue with Christians all the time. And I got off on that. And I wanted to convince people how dumb Christianity was and how they should be an atheist. That was my whole point. But then that became, I started to kind of expand. I started studying philosophy and more epistemology, and got into Buddhism and other alternative views of atheism that could maybe give me a spiritual balance. And then that's kind of where I started this sort of what some people would call a spiritual journey. If you want to use that kind of language, it's fine. If not, no problem. But I came into this other sort of path, and it's kind of led me to where I am today, which is a very non-dogmatic, very non-dualistic sort of worldview, kind of based in Buddhism and all of that. So that's my background, pretty much.
That is really interesting to hear the different variations, and it seems like some people in the chat can relate to that. Tom, do you mind if I jump back to you here? I had a
Sure.
follow-up question I wanted to ask you,
Please.
especially after listening to Scott and Sophia. So the conversation I saw you have with Nathaniel was excellent, as I mentioned. I was one of the things right away that impressed me so much about you is your ability to have a polite, civil discussion with a believer, because I'm sure you must know, if you're in the atheist community, that this is extremely rare from both sides. Usually these Christians or theists in general are throwing a lot of ad hominem at the non-believers, saying we have no morality, we have no purpose in life, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side, the skeptics, the atheists and agnostics, are calling it the magic sky daddy and the flying spaghetti monster and invisible friend. And there's just so much disrespect going both ways. So
I took a lot of flack for that. I took a lot of flack for that, for being too polite. They wanted a bloodbath and it wasn't there.
Yep. That doesn't surprise me at all. So you are on the same page that I am, that you can have these polite discussions. It's just so unusual. Most people don't understand that.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm kind of a mirror in that respect. I mean, if people are keeping it civil, then I'd feel like I was being a bit of an ass for making it into something uncivil. You know what? It wouldn't be natural for me to start attacking somebody that didn't kind of take the first swing at me. So people were a little bit annoyed with that debate, that it was too polite and there wasn't enough kind of jabs being tossed, so to speak. But I still enjoy the discourse, like that. I didn't come there to insult Nathaniel. That wasn't my point. I didn't come there to say, "Oh, you're an idiot because you believe X, Y, and Z." No, it wasn't. I wanted to actually get down to the kind of meat and potatoes of what we were trying to discuss, and kind of take it from there. And it was fun, but at the same time, it was like, okay, could I have been a little bit more aggressive? Sure. But I would have needed a more aggressive dance partner at the same time. And I don't see that in Nathaniel, because he is a nice guy by nature. I wouldn't expect that of him. So maybe if somebody wants more of a bloodbath, then I guess I need a more aggressive dance partner to dance with, right?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. And it's speaking of that debate between you and Nathaniel. I actually caught that debate, and I feel like you won that debate pretty handily. The debate. So just for the audience, the debate was whether or not Christianity was a coherent belief system. And Tom, I think you took the exact same approach I would have taken if I was in that debate myself, by hammering down on the Trinity and really building my argument up from that, because there's so many ways you could go about it. You know what I mean? The cognitive dissonance angle and so many other angles, but the Trinity concept in and of itself, the church fathers, the early church fathers, the patristics, they actually admitted that it was a mystery. They don't have an answer for it. They come up with some bullshit model, you know what I mean? But the model doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a fancy picture on a piece of paper that has literally no coherence whatsoever. So I thought you did an excellent job with that. But the one thing I will say is I've been getting into the debate circle myself here lately. As you guys know, I've had a handful of debates now, and I've performed very well in the debates based on what people have told me and based on the results from the debates itself. I've done really well. But the number one thing for me when I get in these debates is to make sure that I am polite. And the thing that I'm most proud of isn't how I performed well or not well in the debate per se, but the thing I'm most proud of is I was able to articulate and defend my position. And in every single debate that I've had, my opponent said that I was extremely polite. Sometimes they even said it multiple times. And that to me is a victory in and of itself. And I know that there is exactly what you're talking about, Tom. There's this want that people have, this desire that people have to see a bloodbath. And it's on both sides. It's not one side or the other. And I feel like that's based on the fact that, like you were saying, 90, what you said, percent of atheists, I think, if I remember right. So that would be 93% of atheists are former believers.
Right.
And so I believe that's a result from that trauma. On the one hand, you have the atheists who have this religious trauma syndrome, which RTS is a thing for anybody who doesn't know that. And on the other side, you have the people that are still in the cult, and they're pissed off because you're basically telling them that they're idiots for being in this cult. So you have this animosity that's so built up from both sides. Is that what you're seeing?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And yeah, we've all heard, Magic Sky Daddy and all kinds of, stuff being tossed, atheist, we have no grounding for morality. All the mass murderers of history were all atheists. And I've heard it all from both sides so many times. And it's like, okay, guys, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? Do you want to have a conversation, or are we just trying to toss insults back and forth? Again, I only know I believe one other kind of cradle atheist, and very nice lady, and but we're kind of in the same camp that it just never made sense to us because we never grew up with it. And as we got older, I mean, I read the Bible when I was like, what, 17, 18 years old? And I was like, oh, okay, another God myth. And I just threw it on the pile of other God myths. I never thought about it again. It never resonated with me. It didn't kind of there was no impact. In fact, I thought it was rather poorly written, with all the discrepancies and the contradictions. It was like, if this is the divine word of God, it's certainly not very coherent to me. And maybe I'm just missing something, or it's truly like this. And then I've talked to priests, I've spoken to imams, I've spoken to all kinds of people. And, the priests eventually have to break it down to, we take it on faith, or, like you said, it's a mystery, and we have to just appeal to the mystery. Well, how? You're going to base your entire foundation on your entire belief system on a mystery? Like, wouldn't you want to find out, or are you just okay with that and move on with life? That's the part that kind of confuses a lot of the cradle atheists, is like, how do people stay in it even after it's been pointed out to them that it doesn't map onto reality? And it's just confusing. It's like you sit there and scratching your head going, how does this brain functioning? Is it been indoctrinated for so long that it just can't get out of that pattern of this religiosity pattern? And that's the part that's still confusing to me to this day.
I can explain that.
Shoot.
Well, it's because once you identify with something for that long, your entire reality is based on that. So it's like dissolving and shattering your entire identity. And without it, you're going to feel like you have nothing. And that's the exact feeling. But it's like amplified times 100, because it's not just that you can just change your mind and say, oh yeah, well, this sounds stupid, so I'm just going to go the other direction. It doesn't work like that. You're going to lose your entire identity. You're going to lose everything you ever built based on that. You're going to lose your friends. You're going to lose your family. That can include your own children. I mean, it's brutal as fuck. And so a lot of people, they're not willing or sometimes even afraid of that, that this comes all with it. It's not as simple as to say, oh, I'm just going to start seeing things differently. Depending on how deep you were in it, depending on how much you identify with it, depending on how much you invested into it, and how much your actual lifestyle and life depends on that. That's how severe or not severe it's going to be. Sorry, my English is failing me here right now. So a lot of people don't want to do that. It's just like people will force themselves through relationships, even though they're toxic, because they invested so much into it. Maybe your finances are tied up. The house you're living in belongs to the both of you. People don't want that tower moment. The tower moment means that's when everything comes down, the entire structure, the entire illusion just fucking falls apart. It's fucking seriously groundbreaking, ground shaking. It's brutal. That's why.
And it's
Right,
like a
but
death.
sorry, can I just ask Sophia a quick question?
Mhm.
Sophia, but eventually you must get to a certain age where maybe like as a Christian, you would look at the Bible and be like, okay, Moses living to 900 years old. I'm sorry, this cannot be reality. This is just a work of fiction. At what point is it like? Is that
Exactly.
final straw? Like, it's like, okay, this is just not real.
Again, the final straw is okay. A lot of people struggle with their faith and don't believe those things. That's the first thing you got to know. That's why they have pastors that have, sermons where they try to reinforce your faith and they tell you things like, I know your faith is wavering at times, and I know sometimes you think it's just all bullshit, but that's perfectly normal. And it's okay to feel that way, and that's to try to keep the sheep, put them back in line. Just validate them a little bit, because what comes with that is you profit off of it in a way that you think is good, but it's really not, because it erases your core self, your core identity. But you think that the things that you identify with, your material things, your family, you think that all that is all you have. You think that's the only thing you have. So you comply, you become complicit.
Yeah, I want to add something to that, but first I want to hear from Scott. I know you had something to chime in here. So after you go, Scott, let me throw something on there.
Yeah, I was just going to say really quick, for not everybody, but for a lot of people, it becomes a moral crusade. So and this goes with a lot of diehard atheists, skeptics, and religious people. So what
Yep.
happens in that process is that it's a moral issue. So what happens is, what a Christian or a religious person will do is they'll say, well, for moral reasons, I need to stand up and shout to the universe that I believe in God for moral reasons. And I need to help people be convinced of that. That's standing up for my truth, because this will make not only my life better, but the world will become better. I'm doing God's work. And so it's a moral issue. On the other hand, you may have some atheists who believe that, you know what, religion is destroying the world. I'm going to stand up for atheism because it's a moral issue. I need to stand up for rationalism, the rational mind. I need to stand up against things that work against the rational mind and things of this nature. And so you've got two people diametrically opposed to each other for moral reasons, and that's where the passion comes in on both sides, I think.
You know what's the hard one for me? And sorry,
Yeah.
I'll let Daniel just jump in here. Is when you hear the Christians say, "If I didn't have the Bible or I didn't have God, that I'd be out raping and murdering and stealing." I don't know what to say to those people. It's like there's just a moral bankruptcy. That's like, honest. If you didn't have
Man,
this
they're just
book,
fucked.
it doesn't. I don't know. That does never tracked with me. Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, people like that
Yeah,
are
no,
just
you're
fucked.
absolutely. That's
People like that,
yeah. The morality
I
issue
agree.
is
Sorry.
yeah. The morality issue is definitely something I do want to touch on in this conversation. But let me just wrap up this other comment here real quick. Is that it is. So there is something that I see as an outside observer, and I see frankly the same exact thing with people who have strong political views. I'm an independent centrist. I'm very much in the middle, and which is a lot of ways in my life I try to be in the middle because I find that that's usually where the truth lies in most situations. And what you have is something that's called cognitive dissonance. And so you see this when we're talking
Yep.
specifically here about religion, where people do, I think, Tom, I think that I would argue that the majority of people probably do as adults realize that when you are affirming a belief system that includes talking animals, zombies coming up out of their graves, global floods that science has thoroughly refuted. I mean, all this nonsensical stuff that is so detached from the way that they actually function in the real world that it becomes a matter of cognitive dissonance, where they actually embrace what they know is false. They promote, they articulate it, they vocalize it as being true, but they know inside that it's false. But what they do is they shut off those alert signals. They push all that away from the front of their consciousness, and it becomes this struggle. And I can see it clearly because I did grow up in so many different broken homes and stuff. I know exactly what the signs are of people who are disconnected from a healthy mental balance in their lives, that they just disconnected. They can't deal with their emotions in a healthy way. They can't deal with other people in a healthy way, and they can't deal with their jobs or anything in society. And so you see this same kind of a situation with these religious beliefs, is that they literally are taking this idea that we call the real world we're living in, where snakes don't talk, people don't get raised from the dead and all this other bullshit. They put that in a box, metaphorically speaking, and they put it up on a shelf in the back of their little mental closet, and they pretend it's not there. And we see people do this with trauma. They do the same thing with trauma. They have something in their life they can't deal with. Instead of dealing with it, they just pack it away deep, deep down into the part of their brain that they don't have to address in a daily basis. And that's exactly what I see. Chris, did you want to throw something in on top of this before we move on to the morality part of this? Because that's the next part I wanted to talk about, actually. So go ahead, Chris. What do you have to say, brother? And by the way, I'm so glad you came on today. I know I'm really trying to build a network here with people in the community. So when I saw you pop up here, I thought, oh man, that's fucking awesome.
Well, I don't really have much more to say for like right now, but yeah, hello.
Very good. No
Hi.
problem. Okay. So yeah, so let's talk about the morality thing, because I think that actually is cafe. How do I pronounce that? Does anybody here know? Am I saying that correct? Is it cafe?
Well, it depends.
You're
Cafe.
right. There are
Cafe
cafe.
or coffee?
Cafe.
There are
That's
so
cafe.
many different interpretations of the Bible, and that's one of the reasons, because it is so broken from reality, so detached from reality, that it is susceptible to all the different schisms in epistemology. And that's why we have tens of thousands, allegedly tens of thousands. I'm not sure. To me, that number seems a bit inflated, just from what I've studied and stuff at seminary. I think it's several thousand different types of Christianity, but I've heard numbers as high as
It's
like
all the
45,
Protestants.
50,000. Yeah, I don't think I don't know. I haven't counted them all. I certainly, you know what I mean? But I could think of several dozen off the top of my head. So if I was going to be generous, I might extrapolate that out to a few thousand. But even if there's more than one, it shows there's a problem. The fact that we have thousands, hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of Christianities, because of exactly what Cafe is saying. They all have different interpretations. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I was able to be so successful in my debate that I had against that Christian nationalist who wanted to say that we should use the Bible as a basis for society. That's such an easy thing to dunk on, because whose Bible, which Bible, whose interpretation of the Bible? I mean, you could just go down so many ways to attack that argument. It's so stupid that the idea that we could use
Exactly.
the Bible, quote unquote, as the basis for anything is just nonsensical, as I pointed out in my debate. So go ahead. Let's talk about the morality issue. Tom, did you want to bring that up again?
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think what you were saying about the disconnect, the moral bankruptcy, is
Oh,
absolutely spot on. Yeah,
yeah.
because we see that they're justifying slavery, they're justifying
Yeah.
genocide, they're just all the crazy shit that comes out of their mouths.
Right. And then they have the ultimate one where it's like, that blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is the ultimate unforgivable sin. Well, I'm sorry, but I see, abusing a child as some, much worse than something of a thought crime, basically. So, I don't know. As a moral system, to me, it's bankrupt because you can be the worst person on earth and have some deathbed, I don't know what you call it, come to Jesus moment, and you can get through the pearly gates. Whereas someone that was a truly good person all their life, did good work, helped out their neighborhood, whatever, just never believed in God, no, they're not allowed through those pearly gates. That never made any sense to me. And that in itself is like Christians almost wear it as a badge of honor, whereas I look at it like a badge of shame. You're telling me that a repentant child molester could get through those pearly gates while the victim technically couldn't. I don't know. That's completely backwards.
But that's exactly where the cognitive dissonance comes in, and the word shame. You hit it right on the head there, because it's just like the narcissist creates the false self, and he has to justify his actions by elevating it as something that's supreme. You see how you see what I'm saying? So they're just going this perpetual cycle of lying to themselves, pretty much. Because
That's
not
exactly
lying to
where the
themselves
dissonance.
would mean right, and not lying to themselves and admitting this is wrong, that would mean facing all the shame of everything they've ever done under this false structure.
That's literally
You
where
see
the
what I'm saying?
dissonance
It's a
comes into play.
collapse.
No, yeah, no, that's exactly where, by definition, the cognitive dissonance comes into play. Because in real life, most, not all, unfortunately, but most theists would not say, "Oh yeah, slavery is okay," or "Oh yeah, the victim should go to hell, and the perpetrator of the crime could get their way into heaven." They wouldn't really say that. They wouldn't believe that in real life, but they're forced. They are compelled because of the cult and what's mandated to them by the community that they're in, their family members, their friends, like Sophia was talking about. And that is, I'm glad Sophia brought that up, because that is so true, and that is what makes this so dangerous. Is that people say, well, are we ever going to get rid of religion? And it's like, I don't think so. Not likely. Not in my lifetime, and not in the next lifetime or the one after that. Like I mentioned before, 8.5 billion people on the planet, 97% are religious, and we are into the age of enlightenment by what, 250, actually probably like closer to 300 plus years, right, since the age of enlightenment and human secularism. And we're still only at 7% of the population has freed themselves from this cult, and it's a slow process, because it's just so deep. Religious people have kids, they indoctrinate their kids into this, their kids have kids, they indoctrinate, and the ones that get freed or are fortunate, like Tom and myself, who never were there to begin with, are such the minority that this ain't going anywhere. Scott, what do you want to say about the morality part of this, or anything else, by whatever?
Yes, I would say, and I'm speaking from an experiential knowledge set, right? So, what helped me in my experience coming out of religion regarding morality and my behavior, I would even put it, is that what I've kind of discovered to get to the root of my anger problem. And I was totally a different person than you know me today. Like everyone that knows me now, and you hear me speak these words, and you hear me talk, and you hear me interact, and a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I can't imagine you would be anything like the way you're describing yourself," because they know me as such a different kind of person. But believe me, I was a total asshole and an animal, in so many ways. But what has really helped me, and I know this for 100% fact through experiential knowledge, is that this problem has plagued me not only before I was religious, but it plagued me while I was religious, and it plagued me when I was in my atheist phase of angry atheist, and it plagued me professionally in personal relationships and everything else. But what really helped me was when I realized to put ego in its place. Like, ego is very important, don't get me wrong. Ego is how I know what fork to put to what mouth. So you need your ego. There's nothing wrong with the ego, but you have to put it in its place. And so through, discovering these sort of non-dualist sort of things that I talk about all the time, I was able to apply some of these principles through the practice. And part of that is to emotionally sort of align myself with the idea of non-attachment, for one thing, to realize that you don't have to be attached to beliefs. Your beliefs are part of your suffering. A lot of religious people suffer cognitive dissonance, and a lot of people suffer anger because they don't like to be disagreed with. They don't like to lose arguments. They don't like to be disagreed with by people they care for. If your wife disagrees with you about any little thing, you fly off like a little child and throw a tantrum. And that's only because you're attached to your beliefs. You're attached to your ego, and your ego has identified with the things you believe in, your values and everything like that as well. And so what I've kind of learned through disassociating with these sort of beliefs, and really any belief, I'm like objective ethics. I try to stay right there in the middle on everything. The only really thing that I claim that I know for certain, absolutely, is that I exist because I'm experiencing an existence. Anything after that is just an inference of a very limited mind that's learning shit every day. And so when I remember that, it kind of tempers myself. It kind of helps remind me that, you know what, you don't know everything, you can be wrong. And plus, what good is it for you to argue about these things? What good is it? What are you accomplishing? Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has to learn on their own terms and in their own way. And so all you can really do is kind of maybe present some ideas, speak your truth or whatever, but don't get so wrapped up in what people agree with you about and disagree with you about. Now, I love debates. And I've told all you guys, like I love to debate. It's like playing chess. It's like sport. It's like practicing martial arts. You don't go in there to lose. You go in there to win. But winning doesn't mean what it used to mean to me before. I judge things by the structure of arguments and through the framework in which it's based, not whether my point is true absolutely, or that I have to convince as many people of it as possible, because that just leads to cognitive dissonance, cognitive distortion, and all of those things are just different forms of suffering. And that affects your morality because it affects your behavior. You know what I mean? So although I just pissed Joel off, sorry, buddy. Y'all go for it.
Well, for me, how I
I
can
just wanted
comment.
to say, I just wanted to say,
Oh, hold on.
sorry,
Let's go. What?
I just wanted to
Yeah,
say
let's go.
one
What
thing,
is that,
Mike.
Chris? Oh,
Uh,
okay. After
well,
after Sophia, after you go, then let's hear from Chris.
Okay, I was just gonna say one short thing. I think there is no like specific solution. We can't really make people believe something different or make them see the truth. Like it just really doesn't work like that. Like Scott said, everybody's on their own path, and I think that collectively speaking, the collective ego death will come. Meaning, you're gonna be violently um ripped out of your illusions, and there's nothing you can do about it. It will happen eventually, and the way we experience that as a collective is through evolution. We global crises, collapse of old systems, things like that. It's going to happen naturally because we don't need beliefs. We just need alignment with reality, and that's pretty much all there is.
okay. Well, what I wanted to say about on the subject of morality, I put it on the comments, is that essentially that morality is subjective. It's just that as a society, um, we are essentially um have to like we are bound by a consensus via the social contract of society, which I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but that's more of a sociological observation, more or less, of how we conduct ourselves quote unquote. You know, and it's not necessarily like needing of a insert religious textbook, but that's just me. So
Well, I know somebody who's on this panel right now that would definitely
Right,
agree
but
with you, Chris. I'm sure Tom's over there just absolutely preach it, brother, preach it.
Exactly. I'm like, all right, you want to take the show? Go for it. You're speaking what I'm thinking.
I love it. No, this is all really great input, you guys. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I think one of the things that I was thinking about is that, you know, I talked about the cognitive dissonance. If you asked any, and again, it breaks my heart to have to say it doesn't apply to every single believer. There are actually some really fucked up people out there that like, I think it was Tom who brought this up. I can't remember, maybe it was somebody else, but I think it was Tom who said that if it wasn't for religion, some people would be doing some really fucked up shit out there. And I think that's true, whoever said that. But the one thing I would say is that I would say that probably 90% or more of these believers, like take Christianity, for example, or any of the Abrahamic faiths, since they make up half the global population, just the three religions alone, 4.5 billion people are either Christian, Muslim, or Jew. Anyway, if you ask any of these people, listen, do you think, what do you think about drowning babies? And I guarantee you that 97% or 99% of these people are going to be like, oh my God, that's the most disgusting, horrible. You're going to get this visceral reaction from them. And then you say, okay, well, God drowned all the babies in the world with the global flood. Yeah, but God is good. God is the standard of morality. It's just like, that's the cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about, you know, that's just staggering to me.
yeah,
right,
it's more.
but I think that sorry, I
It,
just wanted to say that I think that at the end of the day, I just came to the conclusion that I kind of let go of these types of arguments, and I am in strong support of there being objective morality, and to me that simply means, you know, it's what reality itself enforces. So at the end of the day, nobody is going to top that with uh, cultural laws or subjective opinions or none of that. Like reality is what it is, and what reality itself enforces is what I consider objective morality. So I'm kind of beyond all that. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but it's just, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time and it gets nowhere.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add too, just to kind of temper things a little bit too, is that for my own point of view, listening to your debate that time and understand, you know, and I know objective ethics, I really appreciate where Daniel's coming from, because, you know, it kind of makes more coherent sort of resonance with the mind when you can have something grounded. Whereas in subjectivity, it seems to be so flimsy. It seems to be so incoherent, because what happens is, you know, let's say, I don't know, let me think of something like maybe slavery, for example, right? Now, you can say, well, slavery is just subjectively right or wrong. There's no objective about it. You know, it can be whatever you want it to be. It's subjective, it's relative, or something like that. But even the slave master knows he wouldn't want to be a slave. He knows that to himself. But on the other hand, I also understand the subjective point of view. At the end of the day, you know, everyone is basically coming to these conclusions based on how they feel. But, you know, feelings in our society, in our culture, seem to be sort of looked down upon as, um, you know, kind of meaningless in a way, unverifiable. But there's a special consideration for subjective ethics or subjective morality within the skeptical community. Not necessarily the philosophical community. I think they're half and half on that, from what I understand. I may be wrong,
Um,
but so I understand
Tom
both points of view, but that's just
Tom
what I've
posted a
kind of
thing.
observed.
I'm so sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt, Scott. Maybe rude. Tom
Yep.
posted a thing I just saw. He's got to take off soon, so I want to make sure Tom gets the last word before he has to go. I really appreciate him
That's
coming
okay.
by
Go
today.
ahead.
So I want to, yeah. So Tom, go ahead. Did you want to have any final statements or about anything you want, morality or anything at all that you're thinking of. I really enjoyed having you on the show today, and I apologize. I take full responsibility for this being disconnected. It's completely my fault. One thing, I was about 10 minutes late. That's embarrassing, and I apologize to everybody for my lack of professionalism there. I should have probably done a better job with streamlining the communication so that Scott had a better handle on what was going on, and I should have streamlined it with you so that you and I knew what topic we were talking about. So my apologies, I can't talk, to everybody, including people in the audience. I'll try and do a better job moving forward with this stuff. So Tom, you take it from here.
I mean, I don't want to be long. It's like kind of beating a dead horse almost when you hear all kinds of self-professed Christians doing this and doing that in the name of God, and it's like, are you doing this for brownie points? Are you doing this because it makes you feel good, or are you doing it just for the sake of doing something good? And it kind of brought about this interesting idea that an atheist doing good actually should mean more because there's no expectation, right? There's no divine kind of ticker. There's no scorecard that someone's checking off. Oh, there we go. Tom gave $5 to a homeless guy. He can have a check mark for today. We don't think that that's a thing, right? So whereas somebody that is the classic Christian who thinks that they're going to get some kind of a divine reward for good deeds, and they have to show the fruits. I don't know, to me it's like, okay, what are you doing here? Are you just doing it to get your ticket into heaven? Is this why you're doing it because it's good, or are you doing it to help somebody? What's the motivation behind this? Because I don't know, to me, if it's a selfish motivation, it's almost bad faith if you think about it. And I don't know, and to me, a lot of Christians, it's like, okay, you're think you're getting brownie points by helping somebody, but you're doing it in bad faith. So wouldn't that count against you if God knows everything? It gets to a point of being awfully confusing for me. And again, it just all kind of crumbles on itself when you're looking at it from, okay, does this belief system have coherency? And I will stand by the fact that I don't think Christianity, with the Trinity, with all of its omni properties, I think it's a walking contradiction, and nothing of the sort could be based in any kind of reality that I can even imagine.
The question is whether God
Yeah.
expects obedience because of sincerity, or does he expect obedience because you glorify him first before your own wants and desires? It's like, what's more important, your sincerity or the fact that you're doing what God told you to do?
Yeah, this is actually what happens when you take what's called
Well,
the
at the end
Euthyphro
of the
dilemma
day,
and you
at the
flip
end of
it
the
up
day,
on.
though,
Yeah, this is what happens when you take the
I'm
Euthyphro
sorry, I
dilemma and
must
you
have a
flip it
serious
upside.
delay.
Yeah, there's a lag. So, Sophie, I didn't know what you were talking about. Let me just, before Tom leaves, I want to touch on it. So, the Euthyphro dilemma, for people who don't know, is the dilemma, that the paradox that he brought up is like, does God do things that are good because they're good, or are they good because God does them? And now you're flipping that up on its head and saying, okay, does the Christian do something because it's good, or are they doing something because God told them to do it? At which point then what intrinsic value is there to doing something that's quote unquote good? Because then the danger becomes the divine command theory, which somebody I believe brought up in the chat earlier, and they're exactly right about that. Christian religious morality in general is not objective. It's subjective to the stance of God by definition. And I've pushed that in debates I've had with Christians, because that's another point that's easy to win in a debate. But you're not going to win that on the streets, because Christians just are the cognitive dissonance you're engaging with. But in a debate, you can drive that home. But you end up with what's called divine command theory. So here now, Christians are giving to the poor, like Tom was talking about. They're doing all these charity work, all this goodwill, quote unquote. But there's really, what is their will? What is their intention? What is the value of this system? And if you're saying, well, God commanded it, so that's why I have to do it because of the divine command theory, then you get into, okay, so we look at history, and God, according to what people said God, quote unquote, commanded, we get hundreds of millions, literally hundreds of millions of recorded deaths throughout history. Just the European empiricism right? When about 200 and some years, where Christians were spreading Christian beliefs coming from Christian nations all over Europe, right, and all over the world actually, and they are responsible for hundreds of millions of deaths in that process. Just that 200-year period alone, not counting all the stuff before that and all the stuff after that. So the amount of damage that's been done spreading this religion is historical. We can verify this. We can look at it. So it clearly you end up with this dilemma of how can it possibly be for the sake of good or for goodness sake if you're doing all this damage. It's got to be because God's telling you to. And the danger of it is, like I was saying, is once you start doing things just because God tells you. I mean, there's people who little children have died because their parents refused to take them to the hospital because their beliefs were that God was going to heal them. I mean, you just see this happening all over the place, and it's insane to me. So go ahead, Sophia.
I completely forgot what I was going to say. My bad. But I was just going to, I guess I could say, will we get rid of religion? I would say yes. But it's not that we're going to get rid of it. It's just that it's not aligned with reality and it will forcefully break. And we will see that. And we're already seeing that because, like you said, we're going through this sort of enlightenment stage where we're becoming aware of things like you asking these questions. We're questioning these things. We're not just going along with it anymore. And eventually, based on my pattern prediction, it will break forcefully. It will. Because all religion is it's a way to try to explain reality, and it's a misinterpretation of reality. You see what I'm saying? And it's based on traumas of humanity. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
It does. It does.
To anyone?
I absolutely you articulated it well. It does make sense. Nell, it's great to see you jump in the panel. I feel like
I know
I
I sound
definitely
crazy.
recognized.
Yeah, that's Nell, formerly known as Caleb.
Oh, that's why I recognize that picture. I was like, I feel like I've seen this picture before because I really liked it the first time I saw it, and I just thought, and I feel like I've had a great conversation with
Hey,
this person,
Nell.
but I couldn't
I
remember.
did not notice that
So
either. I didn't notice you.
You're good.
Hey, Nell.
Hey. So, um,
Anyway, I think that the only reason religion has lasted this long is because of levels of awareness that we didn't have before. And so it seemed to work, but it's no longer working like it used to. And we do
I tell
see
you what,
a lot of people.
in the 90s,
Go ahead.
in the 90s, the atheist arguments against religion weren't quite as sophisticated that I've heard, but I hear them so much now. And even the Christian arguments have sort of evolved. I would maybe devolved, in my opinion. The apologists, all these new, and I think that has to do with the internet and Google and all this massive information. It's just like we were talking about with Levin. How the cells, when they can integrate information and communicate, they can evolve. And it's the same thing with human beings. We sort of do that as a collective. Where we share more information than enlightenment sort of heightens. So I'm going to step away for just a minute. I got to put a bowl back in the kitchen. I'll be back.
Well, it kind of stands to reason.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think we will outgrow it. Sorry.
For me, it stands to reason that essentially what took basically did the schism between Catholicism and Protestantism is the printing press, anyway. And thanks to the internet, we're basically experiencing like the second coming of the printing press, for the lack of a better term. Although it's more
What do you mean, like
reflected.
propaganda? You mean?
No, I'm not saying about the propaganda, but the ability to the natural consequences of the printing press was that essentially you could essentially instantly print well, more not instantly, but it's just like you can essentially print out a manuscript more efficiently than just
Oh,
basically
okay.
sitting down, writing up, and also the fact that it takes like the priesthood was essentially the main institution for a long time to um, to essentially like educate main center of
Right.
education and like writing and stuff like that. But prior to the printing press, every like book had to be manually written by somebody, notably within the priesthood. But anyway, I
Yeah, yeah,
digress.
yeah. Christianity
No,
were the
exactly. I
gatekeepers of
agree with you. We're
knowledge.
living in a time where
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I do not I mean to cut people off. It's just that when I start talking, I don't hear whoever else was talking until way later. So I
Yeah, sure.
apologize.
And
Go
for
ahead,
me,
Caleb.
okay, sorry.
No, I was just pointing out, yeah, that Christianity back before the printing press were the gatekeepers of knowledge. They tried to just keep everyone in the dark. And I know the Dark Ages term has fallen out of favor, but I'd say it's somewhat still true.
Yeah, and like
Yes,
one of
but
the
we are in a stage. I was just gonna
but
say,
the
but we are in a phase. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
okay, but though like one of the proponents of Martin Luther was that actually created the schism is that um, instead of the like the mass and even the Bible will be written in Latin, or you know it basically the concept of reading the Bible from your own language. Basically, that's one of the key uh, point factors where that basically created. Well, it's not the, but it's one of those points where the schism just kind of like because of the fact that if things were written in Latin, they basically would have a monopoly. They would basically break the monopoly of knowledge, and so on and so forth. And then the trickle down effect would be that people would create their own opinion and interpretations uh, of scripture, and so on and so forth. And yeah, but my last point is that this is what essentially Islam is experiencing right now, being 300 years or 3 to 400 years, um, like from like not regress, but like like whiplashed into because they did not experience the effects of the typewriter because it was banned within the caliphates and stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm gonna shut up now.
Well, this is one of the things that we are going to experience, and I don't know. This might actually happen in my lifetime, but the Christianity is actually slowing. The growth of Christianity is slowing down pretty significantly and pretty at a fairly regular rate, and Islam is increasing at a fairly regular rate. So Islam is definitely projected to be the biggest religion in the world. The problem is that we're going to run into here is that there are actual real world consequences to this, to the connection between religion and politics. And there's studies that have been done on this. In fact, Pew Research, one of my favorite groups that does studies on different things and does polls on things. It's for people who don't know, it's PEW, Pew Research. Excuse me. And they've done quite a few studies on the connection between religiosity and political affiliation. And here in the US in particular, you could see there's definitely a connection between atheists and the left and religious people and the right. That's not to say all atheists or all religious people, but these are by and large the majorities of how these tend to divide up. As far as Islam goes, though, the problem that we run into is that there's about a dozen or so theocracies left in the world, and one of them is based on the Bible. That's out of Vatican City, and that's the only one that's based on any Christian doctrine. All of the other theocracies all over the world are all based on Islam. So their religion has direct control over the government, and they're not shy about it. You do not want to be uh, a member of a minority group, the LGBTQ community, or anything like that. You don't want to be of a different religion in an Islamic community, because even the ones that are less violent about it, and a lot of them are extremely violent about this, and the ones that are less violent about it, the social exclusion, you won't get jobs, you literally will be discriminated against. I mean, it's such a major way that it won't be worth it to be honest about your beliefs or about your identity, your gender identity, or about your sexual, I don't think they call it identity. I'm not real savvy with all the correct politically right terms, but if you're gay or lesbian or bi, you don't want to be telling people in these Muslim communities that, because you will be socially rejected, even if you're not physically harmed for it. And as this religion grows so fast, because like I said before with the indoctrination, they're forcing their children, literally forcing their children into this Muslim indoctrination. And so that is not going to slow down. This is going to become a thing where Islam is maybe half the world's population alone at some point. It's very frightening, actually.
Although I will point out,
like I have a little bit more of a hopeful outlook on that, because like, okay, yeah, let's say religion to be is as far as I see it, it's an outdated old paradigm, and we are slowly moving away from it, because the gatekeepers are no longer the only ones who have information and control the narrative. We're able to access information in many ways now that we couldn't do before. But I will say that Islam, it's likely going to be like the last major tyrant of the old paradigm fall. And it's kind of like, when the old goes away, it's kind of like crabs in the bucket. There's always going to be that one asshole that wants to hold on to the fucking old shit and refuse to evolve as you're trying to climb out of the bucket. So I think we will see some kind of final explosion. But the good news is it's only happening because, the old is fading away. You see what I'm saying? So I am kind of hopeful. But you know how they say there's always like what do they say? A calm before the storm, or everything gets worse before it gets better, kind of thing. So I definitely see that, and it's a little bit scary, but it's just kind of process that we're going through as a collective to get to where, in my view, consciousness is trying to evolve the way that it's trying to evolve to get to the next paradigm shift. You see what I'm saying?
Go ahead, Neil.
No, absolutely. The problem is that the scary part is that as I said, the fading away you're talking about that we're seeing is only happening on one side of the religious aisle, and that's in the Christian side. That is fading away. You're seeing the opposite on the Muslim side of the aisle. It's growing, and then Judaism is also, it is going to start fading away based on the fact that they are so reliant on help from the West. They're so reliant on America's, support, and they're relatively small, isolated community over in the Near East. And so that's going to be a major problem for them before it's a problem for us even. And
Can
this
we
is just
can
kind of
we
how I
blame
see the
this?
numbers.
no,
I agree with you, objective. And can we blame this on the weak-kneed liberals, the flag wavers who feel sorry for
Well-
the,
well, I
Go
mean,
ahead, Neil.
I was just going to say that we do need to recognize that, just like that it's not just a complete wash with Muslims, because it's like, at least in the United States, I don't know if like the United States is like an exception to the rule, but it's like there seem to the most progressive Muslims seem to be here in the States. Like, Muslims that actually respect the separation
Well,
of church and state.
well, not exactly
Touch that. I
pushing
wouldn't touch
back.
that though. I have a hard time touching that.
Not really pushing back, Neil,
I ain't trying.
but the thing is that what's happening, at least with in terms of Islam, is that there's a separation between East and West. So, well, at least, and the doctrine of old, which is on the eastern part of the hemisphere, is basically in the West is kind of like just kind of not dumbing down, but it's just like making it more digestible. The same thing that happened with Christianity 200 to 300 years ago. Um, Even if the language of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is very fire and brimstone, Deus Vult type of crap that's still in. But I basically like I know that Objective knows, but I basically made the argument on one of our um, like mutual acquaintance, um, channel that essentially Christianity has reached its ceiling, as in the message of the good news has been basically sent, and it's been like there's no new not really like a new population to like convert to. We're just basically just switching hats, more or less, with like within the society, well, playing like musical hats, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
So, compared to Islam, which technically, for better or for worse, in my opinion, 9/11 globalized the consciousness of what Islam is, because prior to that it was just like a, well, at least for in terms of the Western Hemisphere, it was basically like an incoherent religion that was backwatered and stuff like that. And since Bin Laden just kind of put Islam on the map, it just kind of made. That's why you're seeing the surge of information and stuff like that. Even though there was still like theological studies of it, but it's more into the zeitgeist of people, and now basically they're entering the stage of, yeah, but this this sutra and this sutra doesn't fit this and this, and then like everything blows up. So essentially it is like the expansion of Islam, in from my point of view, although as an atheist, is essentially like a mirage. For It's more of a, the next 100 years will determine where it's on going to be on the same track as Christianity.
Yeah.
Like the next 100 years will just kind of determine its fate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, but like my one concern is just like I don't want us to start sounding like bigoted right wingers, because it's like the like take the mayor, the newly elected mayor of
Zoran
New York.
Mandani.
Yeah, it's like he's a democratic socialist who is an ally of trans and LGBT people, and it's like, Islam as a whole, yeah, it's backwards. It's basically, Christianity on crack, but it's like not just like how I would, individually judge, Christians, I would do the same for Muslims as well.
Yeah. And I did like, I'm all for, like, I'm pro LGBTQ plus. You know, I'm not. I don't. Hopefully, don't see myself as a racist or whatever you need to say. But anyway, but it's just I had to essentially just kind of like fit the like, not the timeline exactly, but the arguments in place, just so the overall point would be made concisely. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, brother, and I can see where you're coming from. however, when you really study history and you understand, when you're talking about putting Islam on the map, that is true to a certain degree with the West, with America, because a lot of Americans and the way the school system is set up here, we're really very ignorant. Our children are extremely ignorant about world history, and then the way they spin the history of the world makes it even worse. Every country does this. History is like that. That's why history is not considered a hard science, because all the historical records are written from a particular biased view. Everyone's trying to make their side look better in every historical situation, and that's just the way it is. But when you do study the history of it, the spread of Islam was so rapid, so rapid. If it wasn't for the fact that Catholicism in particular, and that Protestantism later was so deeply entrenched in the Near East, and in from Mesopotamia and up north into Europe and stuff like that, Rome, Greece, and all that stuff. I mean, Christianity was so deeply entrenched. If it wasn't for that fact, all of Europe would probably be Muslim at this point, because went through the Ottoman Empire, it went down into Africa, through Asia Minor, and we're seeing now even into Russia, because Islam does map nicely onto communism and socialism. They actually marry quite nicely together, believe it or not. So it is. I do see Islam growing very, very rapidly. China is going to be an interesting outlier in that, because those Eastern religions are really
Confucianism
well. You've got Confucianism, you've got Buddhism, you've
and
got Jainism, you've got so many.
Taoism.
Yeah, but Taoism is big. Well, the biggest religion outside of the Abrahamics is Buddhism, and that's prevalent over there. But Confucianism, as you said, is another one that's really big over there. But they have such a different view. The problem with that is that the religion itself, those religions, they're all of those religions are ultimately built around nonviolence. And so the political sphere, China is, communist, prone to communism, whatever. So the political sphere is going to make them natural allies. It already has with someone like a Russia, for example. So it's just going to be very interesting how the powers of the world switch, and Islam is going to be a big part of that. Now, I'm not being critical one way or the other as far as whether or not that's going to, you know, I don't want to, Nell
I
brought up
got you.
a fair point. The individual, the group is made up of the individuals at the end of the day, and not every individual is going to be the same. So I'm not talking about, a type of that we should just look at all of Muslims as bad people. I have very good conversations with Muslims, just like I do with Christians when I talk to them. I'm just talking about the reality of the landscape that we're looking at with the shift in the tides from Christianity to Islam. That's the reality that I'm talking about, and I do think that it will be dangerous to the LGBT community, and it will definitely be dangerous for other religions. I see that as being kind of an obvious thing, but that's really not because they're individually bad people, that they are being indoctrinated into a very hateful mindset. That's the problem. All religions are this way. It's not just Islam. All religions
Yeah.
are very
Mhm.
divisive. That's what makes
Oh,
them
yeah.
so dangerous.
Because and I mean, here in the States, it's like, unlike Europe, where they're facing all this Muslim immigration. It's like, no, our as someone who's just recently figured that they're a trans woman, it's like, my greatest threat is Christian nationalism here in the States. And,
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm Canadian, by the way.
oh,
Yeah, so, well, French Canadian, to be quite honest, but to be more specific. But yeah, so just to let you know that if you have like American cultural like shtick, I'll probably just miss it over my head, because that's not my, well, like, I am aware of like America, but I don't know like specific stuff, like cultural stuff that needs to be, especially on like the religious
oh no,
like diaspora.
no,
Huh?
you're fine. We Americans need to constantly be reminded that we're not the center of the world. So,
but anyhow, just to like, yeah, just to like let you know that, like, say if you have, say, like a prominent American religious figure, I'll be like, what? So anyway, so just to let you guys know. So,
but, yeah, no, that's what So for me, it's like, at least here in the States, it's like I'm really not worried about Islam at the moment. It's like it is the magosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's actually the what I would call the brain rot of the like all the tactics strategies of the political, like from politics in the U.S. exporting itself anyhow to my country. So
I
it's
can
like,
only apologize so much.
yeah. I know, I know, but you get the idea
Yeah.
of it's just the like right now like the Conservative Party is like a shit show, and it's like it's not the like Republicans. It's not a clean cut between Republicans and Democrats up here. It's just like a full like spectrum of political parties. Most prominently are like three or five of them, but still, um, yeah. And I won't bore you with the whole nuances of it. Probably for another day. I don't know, but yeah. Um, but yeah, it's just like like I said, the tactics and strategies of U.S. politics exporting itself, and that's what scares me. On top of the fact that the Orange Man is basically is just a walking, talking, uh, like political time bomb of doing whatever he wants for his narcissistic supply. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's anyway.
That's a problem.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, look, I'm gonna have to get off here in the stream, but the other thing I wanted to say, well, first of all, I want to say thanks everybody for joining the stage and having this conversations and adding, so much to the show. And I really appreciate you guys, man. Objective Ethics has really helped me step this channel up with his continued work and everything with me on this, and we've garnered a whole lot more subscribers than we did before. So I want to thank Objective Ethics for that. And I also want to let you guys know if anybody out there, we want to do some debates as well, friendly debates. Like I said before, I'm not really embedded or married to a view, but I do like to debate any topic. Really, I can pick any topic we can debate, or if anybody else on the panel wants to debate somebody else on the panel or in the audience or anything like that, we can set it up. It makes for good content. I think it's really healthy for expanding our mind and looking at things from different points of view. And so if you have any ideas, if anybody wants to debate, I mean, me and Joel had a nice discussion a few days ago about the cogito versus, whether it's arrived at through experience itself or through logical rationality. And we had a nice discussion on that. If you guys can take a look at that, I know Joel would like the panel to kind of weigh in on that at some point. Or we can revisit it again on the panel. Me and Joel can go at it one more time and discuss it. Anybody else want to discuss? If you're a Christian, I'm an agnostic, atheist, non-dualist type person. So if you want to debate me on Christianity or idealism, materialism, whatever you want, let's do it. It just makes for good content. And it's a lot of fun, So if you guys want to do it, man, let me know.
Well, oh, sorry, I'll just real quick and then I'll let you go. Just speaking of debates, just real quick, I want to plug something else that I'm involved in. I'm doing a 3-on-3 debate tonight. In fact, it's happening here in a couple hours at 7 p.m. Eastern. And that's going to be with myself, Joe from the Kentucky Atheist, teaming up with Austin Sims. Those guys have 3 Christians that want to challenge them to a debate. So Joe reached out to me to ask if I'd be on his team. I was quite honored. Those guys are really good debaters. So I'm going to be the topics I'm picking to debate are going to be on biblical morality. I've done several debates on that. If you guys aren't aware, you might want to check those out. And I'm also going to be discussing the global flood myth, which I'm really excited about. I have an open challenge out all over the internet for anybody to debate me about the global flood myth, and nobody has stepped up. Now, I'm not a big name, so there might be some people out there that just have no fucking idea who I am. But yeah, if you know anybody who wants to actually debate the global flood myth, I'm definitely chomping at the bits to do a debate about that. So tonight's debate's going to be an interesting format. They have each team picked 5 topics, so there's 10 total topics. They put the topics on a wheel. They're going to spin the wheel. Whoever topic comes up, those are the 2 people that are going to go at it for about 15, 20 minutes. It's not going to be like a full-on, like a normal debate, where one topic gets really fleshed out, but it'll be really fun to go back and forth with these Christians. We have our 5 topics. They wanted me to choose 2 debates. So I chose the 2 I mentioned, the biblical morality and the global flood myth. Austin Sims, for those of you in the community, the atheist community, you should know him. He's a big name. He debates evolution. He's gone at it with Ken Hovind and others. We had Joe from the Kentucky Atheist. I'm sure people probably know who he is. If you don't, check out his channel. Please support him, like, subscribe, all that kind of bullshit. And the Christians are all actually tied into Ken Hovind's cult. They actually live out on the complex, and so they're fully indoctrinated. They've fully drank the Kool-Aid. So for anybody who wants to see a fun debate, super chats get to get the wheel spun. If the audience doesn't like the way the debate's going, they could just go ahead and send in a super chat. We'll respin the wheel. If they want a specific topic picked, there's going to be like a $5 super chat option. You can pick any of the topics off the wheel. So it's going to be a lot of audience interaction. And I think there was one other thing I wanted to say in closing, but now I can't remember. That's what I was gonna say. Scott, can you make me a mod on this channel at some point so I can post links? I don't know if
Yeah,
you can do it while I'm
absolutely.
here in the room with you. So if you could,
Yeah.
I sent that link. I sent that link to you in your email. Can you pull that link and post it here in the
Yes.
chat
Let
for
me do
people?
that. Sure.
And then at
Hold
some
on
point,
1 second.
if you could make me a mod for future times, that would be easiest. And then Nell, I'm so sorry to cut you off there.
Oh,
I just want to say in
absolutely.
closing, I really appreciate Chris Moore. Appreciate you coming by based on the invitation. As I mentioned before, I'm trying to help Scott and Sophia grow the channel, and it starts with community, building community. So please do spread the word around James and that community. James Apperson, I consider him to be a friend. I really like him. I'm hoping to have him on as a guest here coming up. We're so booked out, so it's going to be, I don't know if he has the last Saturday set up yet or not, but I'm going to coordinate that with Scott and James Apperson. Anybody who doesn't
Yeah.
know James, I would definitely recommend checking out his channel. He's a really smart guy. He's really entertaining. And any ideas for shows you guys want to see? So the next official show that Scott, Sophia, and I are doing, we're calling it the Trifecta. It's going to be on the first Saturday of next month, and we're going to be discussing A theory and B theory of time for anybody who's interested in that time. And then I think we agreed, Scott, this has been going so well, and we've got such a great reaction from people about the trifecta concept that we're going to start doing it on the first Saturday and last Saturday of every month. And
That's
so
right.
the last Saturday of next month, the topic is going to be on free will. So there's some stuff to look forward to. We've got some featured guests coming up, and then we're going to be discussing A theory, B theory of time on our first trifecta show, the first Saturday of next month. And then the last Saturday of next month, the trifecta show will be on free will. So stay tuned for all of that. Now I'm going to shut up and let you guys do your thing.
I was going to say, it's like we're all, at least the 4 of us, are on a spectrum of agnosticism or atheism, and it's like, yet we're all skeptics, yet we all hold different beliefs that we can, have a cordial discussions about. Like, both Sophia and Objective, believe in objective ethics or morality, and yet I believe in subjective morality. It's like, and I'm a causal determinist. It's like there's a whole bunch of stuff that we could, potentially have debates.
And that's the beauty of the channel, is we're not an echo chamber. So that was part of the vision when we launched the channel, is that, Sophia's a mystic. I'm not a mystic. I'm a non-dualist, but objective ethics is sort of an agnostic. And, everything in between. Everybody comes on the show. If you disagree or if you have a different view, no problem. That's who we invite. That's who we want. We don't want people that just agree, because we're trying to change things. We're trying to shift everything to be more open-minded and just non-attachment,
Mm-hmm.
But let's look forward to this. We got some good content coming up. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you like the concept and you want to get on stage in the future, and just become a subscriber, and you can do it, man. So we're going to go ahead and get off here. And I really wish you guys the best rest of the weekend. And look out for, I put the link in the live chat to check out the objective ethics debate and everything he was referring to. And yeah, it'll be in a few hours. So we'll be checking that out real shortly.
It was nice getting to talk with you guys.
Yeah, man. You guys have a great one. Appreciate all of you. Later.